Yo, what's up guys? It's Austin here, or Luna. Today's story time is definitely a wild one and I can't believe I've never shared it before. I was sure I had, but after searching through my channel for a while, it turns out I haven't. So here it is, one of my favorite stories to tell my friends. If you enjoy it, please leave a like on the video, I'd really appreciate it. Also, I'll be live when this video goes up, so if you see it early, click that link in the description or the top comment and come hang out. Anyway, let's jump into it. Today's story time takes place during my last year of high school, right before I decided to quit and pursue YouTube full time. Things were going great for me, not so much academically since my grades were trash, but overall, life was looking up. My YouTube channel was growing like crazy and I had a lot of exciting things happening at a young age. It was a weird feeling knowing that people in my school were aware of my YouTube channel. Most of them thought it was cool, and that was great, but it also made me feel a bit awkward. Still, I loved that some people were genuinely proud of me. Of course, not everyone was happy about it. There were definitely a few people who were envious and bitter, and they just couldn't stand the fact that I was finding some success. There were even people who would try to bring me down, saying things like, "You know that's not gonna last, right? You should focus on something more realistic." And honestly, it's pretty funny looking back on that now. If any of those people are watching this, yeah, joke's on you, I guess. Anyway, among the people at my school, there was this one guy who also did YouTube. Let's call him Mr. Tech YouTuber. He had a channel with around 10,000 subscribers and he mostly made tech review videos. You know, stuff like reviewing gaming consoles, PCs, tech gadgets. He was really into all that. He'd even go to the launch events for new devices and film the experience. It was pretty cool, and I actually thought his content was great. We were even friends for a while, a couple of years before I started my channel. Now, Mr. Tech YouTuber came from a pretty wealthy family, so he had all the newest gadgets, and his parents bought everything he needed for his videos. It wasn't like he was getting sponsored by these companies, he just had the privilege of being able to afford all the cool new stuff, and I always thought that was impressive. But when my channel started growing and eventually surpassed his in subscriber count, things started to change. I remember that he gradually stopped talking to me and he became more distant, and the bigger my channel got, the more he seemed to resent me. It got to the point where it felt like he hated me, and I never really understood why. I mean, I've always been the type of person who gets genuinely happy for my friends when they succeed, so when I started doing well, I didn't get why he seemed so pissed off about it. One day, I was having a pretty normal school day. I don't remember exactly how many subscribers I had at this point, but it was definitely over 100,000, which was a big deal for me, and I was stoked. Lunchtime came around and I went to the cafeteria with my friends, just like any other day. I always sat with the same 5 friends and we were just chilling at our usual table, eating lunch and talking about our plans for the weekend. Everything was pretty standard, right? Well, that's when things got weird. All of a sudden, I see Mr. Tech YouTuber walking straight towards our table and he looks pissed. He's holding his lunch tray and he slams it down on our table so hard that his chocolate milk splashes everywhere. And yeah, I know how that sounds. It was messy as hell with milk all over the table. Then he sits down, glaring at me and goes, "Austin, we need to talk." I'm taken aback, but I try to keep it cool. I hadn't talked to the guy in months and I had no idea what he was so mad about. I say, "Hey man, what's up? I haven't talked to you in a while. How's it going?" And he's just not having it. He goes, "No, don't give me that expletive. I heard what you've been saying about me." I'm genuinely confused at this point, so I'm like, "What are you talking about? I haven't said anything about you." And that was the truth. I hadn't even mentioned his name in like 6 months, and whenever I did talk about him, it was never negative. He insists that someone told him I was talking trash about him in the cafeteria the day before. According to him, I'd been saying that my channel was better, I was making more money, getting more views, and that he was irrelevant now. I couldn't help but laugh. I was like, "Dude, I never said any of that. And who told you this anyway?" He refuses to say who, which makes no sense, so I tell him, "Look man, only the 5 people sitting at this table were here with me yesterday. If none of them told you that, then it's not true because no one else heard anything I said." He still wasn't buying it though. He said his source was reliable, and I'm just sitting there like, "Bro, listen to me. I didn't say anything about you. Whoever told you that is lying." That's when things escalated. He stands up, walks around the table, and gets right in my face. He starts yelling, "You just think you're better than everyone, don't you? You think your life is so perfect and you're out here flexing on everyone." At this point, I'm losing my patience, and I tell him, "Dude, your life is literally easier than mine. You come from money, you have every opportunity handed to you, and yet you're acting like I'm the one with the perfect life. Just leave me alone, man." And that's when he really lost it. He starts rolling up his sleeves like he wants to fight, and I'm thinking, this can't be serious. I say, "Just go back to your table, man. I don't want to do this right now." He ignores me, grabs my shirt, and pulls me up from my seat. I tell him, "If you put your hands on me one more time, I'm gonna hit you." He doesn't care. He takes his finger and pokes me right in the forehead, hard enough to push me back a bit. And that's when I snapped. I lunged at him, tackled him onto the table, and we both went crashing into everyone's lunch trays. There was chocolate milk, slushies, and fries flying everywhere. We were on top of the table throwing punches at each other. I got a couple of hits in, and he did too. But before it could go any further, a security guard and a lunch lady rushed over and pulled us apart. When they finally got us separated and standing up, I realized I got off pretty easy. My clothes were still clean, and I wasn't covered in food. Meanwhile, Mr. Tech YouTuber looked like a complete mess. His white shirt was stained with chocolate milk, ketchup, and all kinds of random food. Honestly, it was kind of hilarious. The whole cafeteria was staring, and seeing him covered in food like that probably made it look like I'd won the fight. I'm gonna be real with you guys though, there wasn't really a winner. We both got in a few punches, but it ended too quickly for either of us to really come out on top. Still, the way he looked afterward, I'll take the win. After that, we got escorted to the principal's office, and we both ended up getting suspended for 2 days. Honestly, I thought it was gonna be worse, so I wasn't too upset about it. But yeah, that was the last time he ever spoke to me. He kept giving me dirty looks in the hallway, but he never said another word. Not long after that, I quit school to focus on YouTube, and I never saw him again. The funny thing is, before recording this story, I looked up his YouTube channel. He quit YouTube about a year after I left school. He got to around 50,000 or 60,000 subscribers, and then just stopped. He deleted all his videos and posted on Twitter that he was done. I honestly wish he hadn't given up. He had potential, and he was growing pretty fast. He went from 10,000 to 60,000 in a year, which is impressive. I think he could have had a solid career if he'd stuck with it. Anyway, I guess the moral of the story is this. Don't give up and don't let jealousy get in the way of your success. Just because someone else is doing well doesn't mean you won't. Everyone has their own journey and we all grow at different rates. Be patient, stay focused, and don't waste your time being bitter about someone else's success. Your time will come. Thanks for listening to this story time, guys. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your story times in the comments below and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all later. Peace. Yo, what's good guys? It's Austin here, or Luna. So, today's story time is definitely an interesting one. I look back on this and think, wow, what if I had actually listened? And honestly, I'm so glad I didn't. I hope you guys enjoy this story time. If you do, leave a like on the video and let's jump into it. By the way, I'm live on Kick right now, so if you're watching this in the first couple of hours, come check that out. Link is in the description. Anyway, today's story takes place in 2015. This was one of the last years I had in school before I dropped out to pursue YouTube full-time. Some of you might already know that, but for those of you who don't, yup, I dropped out. It wasn't exactly an easy decision, but looking back now, it was probably one of the best things I did for myself. So let me set the scene. It was 2015, and honestly, I was having a pretty normal year. By normal, I mean I was failing most of my classes and not doing very well. Unfortunately, that was kind of my norm back then. It wasn't like I didn't try, I did, I really did. But for some reason, no matter how hard I tried, I just couldn't seem to pass my classes. It was like I was constantly fighting this uphill battle, and no matter how much effort I put in, I kept sliding back down. It was frustrating as hell. This story all starts off as a regular day. I went to school, I got there, went about my day as usual, and everything was pretty standard up until about halfway through. That's when things took a turn. I was sitting in math class, which by the way, was one of my worst subjects. I was struggling to keep my eyes open, trying to pay attention to what the teacher was saying, when all of a sudden, I hear my name over the loudspeaker. Austin, can you please come to the principal's office? I remember thinking, huh? What did I do now? Because that day, I hadn't done anything wrong. I hadn't gotten into trouble or anything, so I was honestly confused about why they were calling me in. But you know, you hear your name on the PA and you go. So I got up, walked out of the classroom, and headed over to the principal's office. As soon as I got there, I walked in and saw this big table with like half of my teachers sitting around it. Not my math teacher, she was still in class, but a bunch of other teachers. My English teacher was there, my history teacher, one of my tutors, and a few other teachers that I worked with from time to time. And sitting there at the table, right alongside them, was my mum. I remember my mum looking at me and saying, "Why don't you sit down?" So I sat down and immediately my brain went into overdrive. I was thinking, what the hell is happening right now? Why are all these people here? What's this meeting about? And then, as if to answer my question, my principal started speaking. The first thing she said was, "Austin, do you know how close you are to failing the year?" And just like that, it all clicked. This whole meeting was about my grades, my shitty grades. I looked back at her and said, "No, I don't know." And she replied, "You're really close to failing the year. If you fail one more quarter, you're done. You won't be moving on to the next grade." I tried to defend myself, saying, well, I'm trying my hardest. But before I could get much further, my history teacher chimed in. He said, Austin, I know you're not trying your hardest. In my class, you have your head down all the time. You're falling asleep. I can tell you're not getting enough sleep at home. Then my English teacher added, yeah, we can tell you're not all there. I know you have that YouTube hobby that you do, and it seems like you're putting more time into that than your schoolwork. Every day you're on there doing stuff, but you're not doing your assignments. It feels like you're prioritizing things that don't matter as much. And just like that, it was out in the open. All of my teachers knew about my YouTube channel. The secret was out, and they all seemed to have a problem with how much I was uploading. They didn't like the daily uploads, guys. Like literally, right after my English teacher said that, all the other teachers chimed in. They were like, yeah, we don't understand why you're uploading so much on YouTube and not focusing on your schoolwork. What do you think is more important? They just kept going in on me about it, one after another, and my mom was sitting there quietly the whole time. She knew how much YouTube meant to me, but she also knew that school was important. She was kind of caught in the middle, and I could tell she didn't really know what to say. Finally, they all went around the table, taking turns telling me how I needed to put more effort into school and less into YouTube. When it was my turn to talk, I said, listen, I understand that it may be hard for you to see why my YouTube channel is important to me, but it's not just a hobby, it also makes money. So if that's any reason to keep uploading, there's that. And look, I never uploaded videos for the money. I always did YouTube because I loved it. It was a hobby that just happened to turn into something bigger. But I figured that maybe if they knew I was making money, they might get off my back a bit. After I said that, my history teacher laughed and said, yeah, how much money? Is it really worth it? And little did he know, at that point I was making more money from YouTube than he was teaching. But I wasn't about to say that because I didn't want to be rude. Instead, I just laughed to myself and looked down at the table without saying anything. He wasn't having it though. He said, what's so funny? And I looked up and said, nothing, you're just ignorant. And he fired back, I'm ignorant? Well, I'm not the one failing the school year, am I? And at that point, I was done. I looked at him and said, you know what's funny? I'm probably going to fail this school year. I'm probably going to keep making YouTube videos like the nerd that I am, but somehow, at 16 years old, I'll still be making more money than you. He got so mad, I could see the insecurity on his face. He was like, that's not even true, and you know it. You don't know anything about my life. You're just making assumptions. And I shot back, wow, isn't that funny and ironic coming from you right now? It's almost like you just did the same thing to me. He went silent after that. He had nothing to say. My principal quickly stepped in saying, all right, stop it. This is ridiculous. This isn't the point of the meeting. All we're trying to say is that you should probably focus more on school and less on other things. I've talked to your mom about it, and we think it would be best if you took a break from YouTube for at least a year and got your grades back on track. And without missing a beat, I replied, absolutely not. That's never gonna happen. I'll try to get my grades up, but I'm not stopping my videos. You can try to take it away from me. You can tell me to stop, but I'm never gonna stop doing this. They kept trying to convince me, but they couldn't. I was dedicated, and I still am. In the almost 10 years I've been doing YouTube, people have told me to stop countless times. At least once a year, I'd have someone say, oh, it's probably not gonna be feasible for more than a year or two. It probably won't last long. And yet, here I am, still standing 10 years later. So, yeah, I don't know what to tell those people. I'm not trying to hype myself up or anything, but the bottom line is, I ended up telling my teachers as nicely as I could that I wasn't going to listen to them, and they didn't like that. They kept trying, but eventually, the meeting had to end because we ran out of time. Later that night, I was eating dinner at home, and my mom said, listen, I know this YouTube stuff is important to you, and you're doing well with it, so I'm not going to take that away from you, but I really think you should try to finish school. And I agreed with her. I told her I would try, and I did. I tried for a while, but honestly, I just couldn't do it. Whether it was my ADHD, my laziness, or just my inability to focus, I couldn't do it. And not long after that, I ended up dropping out. And honestly, I'm glad I did. Dropping out gave me way more time to focus on my channel, and it worked out really well. That was the year that changed my life. After that, I hit 1 million subscribers, and I became a full-time YouTuber and streamer. Things worked out better than I ever could have imagined. So, I guess the moral of the story is, don't give up on the things you believe in. I'm not saying you should drop out of school to pursue YouTube or some other dream, but you can do both. You can do well in school and still pursue your hobbies, whether it's YouTube, streaming, music, skateboarding, whatever. You can do both, and if people tell you that you can't, they're wrong. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't do both. I was either too dumb or too distracted or whatever, but I know a lot of you can. So that's pretty much the end of the story. I'm really glad I didn't listen to them and didn't take that year off, because if I had quit YouTube for a year, I probably wouldn't be here today, talking to you guys. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this story time. If you did, please leave a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your story times in the comments down below and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all later. Peace. Yo, what's good guys? It's Austin here, or Luna. So, today's story time is definitely an interesting one. I look back on this and think, wow, what if I had actually listened? And honestly, I'm so glad I didn't. I hope you guys enjoy this story time. If you do, leave a like on the video and let's jump into it. By the way, I'm live on Kick right now, so if you're watching this in the first couple of hours, come check that out. Link is in the description. Anyway, today's story takes place in 2015. This was one of the last years I had in school before I dropped out to pursue YouTube full-time. Some of you might already know that, but for those of you who don't, yup, I dropped out. It wasn't exactly an easy decision, but looking back now, it was probably one of the best things I did for myself. So, let me set the scene. It was 2015, and honestly, I was having a pretty normal year. By normal, I mean I was failing most of my classes and not doing very well. Unfortunately, that was kind of my norm back then. It wasn't like I didn't try. I did, I really did. But for some reason, no matter how hard I tried, I just couldn't seem to pass my classes. It was like I was constantly fighting this uphill battle, and no matter how much effort I put in, I kept sliding back down. It was frustrating as hell. This story all starts off as a regular day. I went to school, I got there, went about my day as usual, and everything was pretty standard up until about halfway through. That's when things took a turn. I was sitting in math class, which by the way was one of my worst subjects. I was struggling to keep my eyes open, trying to pay attention to what the teacher was saying, when all of a sudden I hear my name over the loudspeaker. Austin, can you please come to the principal's office? I remember thinking, huh? What did I do now? Because that day, I hadn't done anything wrong. I hadn't gotten into trouble or anything, so I was honestly confused about why they were calling me in. But, you know, you hear your name on the PA and you go. So, I got up, walked out of the classroom, and headed over to the principal's office. As soon as I got there, I walked in and saw this big table with like half of my teachers sitting around it. Not my math teacher, she was still in class, but a bunch of other teachers. My English teacher was there, my history teacher, one of my tutors, and a few other teachers that I worked with from time to time. And sitting there at the table, right alongside them, was my mom. I remember my mom looking at me and saying, "Why don't you sit down?" So I sat down and immediately my brain went into overdrive. I was thinking, what the hell is happening right now? Why are all these people here? What's this meeting about? And then, as if to answer my question, my principal started speaking. The first thing she said was, "Austin, do you know how close you are to failing the year?" And just like that, it all clicked. This whole meeting was about my grades, my shitty grades. I looked back at her and said, "No, I don't know." And she replied, "You're really close to failing the year. If you fail one more quarter, you're done. You won't be moving on to the next grade." I tried to defend myself, saying, "Well, I'm trying my hardest." But before I could get much further, my history teacher chimed in. He said, "Austin, I know you're not trying your hardest. In my class, you have your head down all the time. You're falling asleep. I can tell you're not getting enough sleep at home." Then my English teacher added, "Yeah, we can tell you're not all there. I know you have that YouTube hobby that you do, and it seems like you're putting more time into that than your schoolwork. Every day you're on there doing stuff, but you're not doing your assignments. It feels like you're prioritizing things that don't matter as much." And just like that, it was out in the open. All of my teachers knew about my YouTube channel. The secret was out, and they all seemed to have a problem with how much I was uploading. They didn't like the daily uploads, guys. Like, literally right after my English teacher said that, all the other teachers chimed in. They were like, "Yeah, we don't understand why you're uploading so much on YouTube and not focusing on your schoolwork. What do you think is more important?" They just kept going in on me about it, one after another, and my mom was sitting there quietly the whole time. She knew how much YouTube meant to me, but she also knew that school was important. She was kind of caught in the middle, and I could tell she didn't really know what to say. Finally, they all went around the table, taking turns telling me how I needed to put more effort into school and less into YouTube. When it was my turn to talk, I said, "Listen, I understand that it may be hard for you to see why my YouTube channel is important to me, but it's not just a hobby, it also makes money. So if that's any reason to keep uploading, there's that." And look, I never uploaded videos for the money. I always did YouTube because I loved it. It was a hobby that just happened to turn into something bigger. But I figured that maybe if they knew I was making money, they might get off my back a bit. After I said that, my history teacher laughed and said, "Yeah? How much money? Is it really worth it?" And little did he know, at that point, I was making more money from YouTube than he was teaching. But I wasn't about to say that, because I didn't want to be rude. Instead, I just laughed to myself and looked down at the table without saying anything. He wasn't having it though. He said, "What's so funny?" And I looked up and said, "Nothing. You're just ignorant." And he fired back, "I'm ignorant? Well, I'm not the one failing the school year, am I?" And at that point, I was done. I looked at him and said, you know what's funny? I'm probably gonna fail this school year. I'm probably gonna keep making YouTube videos like the nerd that I am, but somehow, at 16 years old, I'll still be making more money than you. He got so mad. I could see the insecurity on his face. He was like, that's not even true, and you know it. You don't know anything about my life. You're just making assumptions. And I shot back, wow, isn't that funny and ironic coming from you right now? It's almost like you just did the same thing to me. He went silent after that. He had nothing to say. My principal quickly stepped in, saying, all right, stop it. This is ridiculous. This isn't the point of the meeting. All we're trying to say is that you should probably focus more on school and less on other things. I've talked to your mom about it, and we think it would be best if you took a break from YouTube for at least a year and got your grades back on track. And without missing a beat, I replied, absolutely not. That's never going to happen. I'll try to get my grades up, but I'm not stopping my videos. You can try to take it away from me, you can tell me to stop, but I'm never going to stop doing this. They kept trying to convince me, but they couldn't. I was dedicated, and I still am. In the almost 10 years I've been doing YouTube, people have told me to stop countless times. At least once a year, I'd have someone say, oh, it's probably not going to be feasible for more than a year or two. It probably won't last long. And yet, here I am, still standing 10 years later. So, yeah, I don't know what to tell those people. I'm not trying to hype myself up or anything, but the bottom line is, I ended up telling my teachers as nicely as I could that I wasn't going to listen to them, and they didn't like that. They kept trying, but eventually the meeting had to end because we ran out of time. Later that night, I was eating dinner at home, and my mom said, listen, I know this YouTube stuff is important to you, and you're doing well with it, so I'm not going to take that away from you, but I really think you should try to finish school. And I agreed with her. I told her I would try, and I did. I tried for a while, but honestly, I just couldn't do it. Whether it was my ADHD, my laziness, or just my inability to focus, I couldn't do it. And not long after that, I ended up dropping out. And honestly, I'm glad I did. Dropping out gave me way more time to focus on my channel, and it worked out really well. That was the year that changed my life. After that, I hit 1 million subscribers, and I became a full-time YouTuber and streamer. Things worked out better than I ever could have imagined. So, I guess the moral of the story is, don't give up on the things you believe in. I'm not saying you should drop out of school to pursue YouTube or some other dream, but you can do both. You can do well in school and still pursue your hobbies, whether it's YouTube, streaming, music, skateboarding, whatever. You can do both, and if people tell you that you can't, they're wrong. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't do both. I was either too dumb or too distracted or whatever, but I know a lot of you can. So, that's pretty much the end of the story. I'm really glad I didn't listen to them and didn't take that year off, because if I had quit YouTube for a year, I probably wouldn't be here today, talking to you guys. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this story time. If you did, please leave a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your story times in the comments down below and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all later. Peace. Yo, what's good guys? It's Austin here, or Luna. Today's story time is absolutely fucking wild. Have you ever stumbled upon some crazy shit on someone's computer that made you go, what the actual fuck? Well, I have, and today's story is all about that moment. If you enjoy it, please leave a like on the video and let's jump into it. Also, quick plug, I dropped a new song a couple of weeks ago called Adios, and if you haven't checked it out yet, go do that. It'll be the first link in the description. But, alright, let's get into it. So, today's story takes place when I was 18 years old, still living at home in New York. It was right before I made the big move to LA. My friend group back then was completely different from the one I have now, like night and day. Honestly, out of that group, I think I only still talk to maybe 1 or 2 of them. Not because anything bad happened to most of them, we just drifted apart. You know, life just takes people in different directions. But the guy in today's story? Yeah, I'm not friends with him anymore for a pretty specific reason. And while it wasn't solely because of what happened in this story, it definitely made me see him in a different light. Not in a he's a bad guy kind of way, but more like, wow, I really didn't know you were into that. So, let's stop beating around the bush and dive into it. This story all kicks off on a regular day when I was 18. I was sitting in my room, just doing my thing, working on a YouTube video. Actually, it's kind of ironic because the video I was working on that day was about catching a friend watching some adult entertainment on his computer. Yeah, you know where this is going. Turns out that was just foreshadowing because on that very day, I ended up catching another friend doing something even weirder. So I'm sitting there editing when suddenly my phone rings. It's my friend, we'll call him Joe. Joe was a couple of years older than me, so he was about 20 at the time. I pick up the phone and he's like, yo, what's up, man? What are you up to? I tell him, just working on a YouTube video, you know, same old, same old. And he goes, oh yeah? What's the video about? So I tell him, it's about catching an old friend watching some saucy stuff on his computer. Joe laughs and says, "Oh man, that's fucking embarrassing." And I say, "Yeah, a little bit, but it happens." Then Joe gets all cocky and says, "Yeah, not to me." I'm like, "Really?" And he goes, "Yeah, I've never been caught doing anything." He was sounding like he was on some kind of high horse, like he was above everyone else. So I asked him, "You've never watched porn?" And he goes, "Well, yeah, but I'm not a fucking weirdo about it." "I shit you not," he actually said. "I'm not a fucking weirdo." And I'm thinking, alright, Joe, whatever helps you sleep at night. Anyway, I didn't want to keep that weird conversation going, so I changed the subject. He asks if I'm doing anything later and if I want to hang out. I was like, "Yeah, sure, what do you want to do?" He says, "I'm thinking about having a bonfire. You down?" Of course I'm down, so we plan to meet up at his place around 8:30. I finish editing my video, upload it, read some comments. You guys know I love reading the comments. And then I get ready to head over to Joe's place. When I get there, there's already about 5 other people there. It's Joe, me, and a few of our high school friends. We start the bonfire and everything's just chill. We're sitting around the fire, telling old stories, having a few laughs, just the usual. Then Joe brings up YouTube. He's like, "Yo, how's the channel doing?" I tell him it's going well, and he asks, "What kind of views are you getting these days?" So, I tell him, and he's all like, "Damn, that's sick, man. You really have a lot of fans." I just kind of laugh and say, "Yeah, I guess so. It's pretty crazy." Then Joe asks me what video editing program I use for my videos, and I tell him. He's like, "Yo, could you maybe install that on my computer?" Since I can remember, Joe always wanted to get into YouTube. He didn't want to do story times like me, but he was super into gaming and wanted to make gaming content. And look, I'm always down to help a friend out. So I say, "Yeah, sure, I can help you install it." And then he says, "Sweet, could you do it right now? Like, just go inside, grab my laptop from the living room, and bring it out here." I can't lie, I was a little annoyed. Like, I'm here for a bonfire, not a tech support session. But whatever, I say, fuck it, and go inside, grab his laptop off the table, and bring it outside. I hand the laptop to Joe, and I'm like, "Yo, type in your password so I can get started." And this is where shit starts to get interesting. He gets this weird look on his face, like he knows something's about to happen but can't stop it. He types in his password, and the screen unlocks. And what do I see? A fucking website I've never seen before, and pulled up on this site is an adult video. But it's not just any porn video. No, this is something straight out of a fever dream. It's a video of a dude dressed up as SpongeBob SquarePants, getting it on. I mean, full SpongeBob costume, yellow square, all of it. And the girl, she's doing things to SpongeBob that I promise you no one ever asked to see. Now the minute I see this shit, I'm just in shock, and Joe knows he's fucked. He doesn't even try to slam the laptop shut or anything. He knows there's no getting out of this. He just looks at me, all embarrassed, and he goes, "Oh, my bad. I think my little brother was watching that." And I'm standing there like, "Your little brother? Really? That's your excuse?" I know for a fact his little brother has his own laptop, so there's no fucking way he was using Joe's. I just look at him and say, "Yeah, sure, Joe. No weird shit, huh? What would you call that then?" And of course, all our friends around the fire are curious as hell now. They're all like, "What is it? What did you see?" Joe's trying to play it off, saying, "Nah, it's nothing, don't worry about it. I already closed it." But they weren't letting it go. They're like, "Nah, man, tell us, what was it?" Then they turn to me, and they're like, "Austin, come on, what did you see?" I look at Joe, and he's giving me this desperate look like, "Please don't say anything." So I ask him, "You want me to tell them?" And he's like, "It wasn't me, okay? It was my brother." He's stuttering, trying to explain it, and clearly no one's buying it. So finally he admits it. He says, "Okay, fine, it was a guy dressed up as SpongeBob, you know, doing stuff." And they're all like, "What kind of stuff? What was he doing? Was he doing parkour or something?" At this point, they're just fucking with him, and I'm dying laughing. I mean, I've got tears streaming down my face because this is just so ridiculous. Joe ends up getting pissed, slams his laptop shut, and says, "You know what? Fuck this. We'll do it another day." And he storms inside, slams the door behind him, and doesn't come back out for the rest of the night. So there we are, having a bonfire at Joe's house, without Joe. We just kept going, talking shit about what had just happened, laughing our asses off. The next morning, I couldn't resist. I called him up, and the first thing I said was, "Yo, Joe, watching SpongeBob last night?" He just goes, "Ah, shut the fuck up, Austin." I mean, I had to give him shit for it. The guy literally called me the day before and told me he didn't watch any weird shit, and then he's watching SpongeBob porn. Come on, you can't make this up. It was awkward as hell hanging out with Joe the next few times after that. But eventually, things went back to normal. We all gave him shit for a while, but after a few weeks, we just kind of stopped bringing it up. I mean, at the end of the day, it was just an adult video. Yeah, it was fucking weird, but whatever. No one's perfect. We all have our weird moments, right? No. Unfortunately though, a few months later, me and Joe had a falling out. It wasn't because of SpongeBob or anything like that. It was for a whole different reason, and that's a story for another time. But yeah, after that, we just weren't friends anymore. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this story time. It's definitely one of the crazier ones. If you liked it, please leave a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your own story times in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all later. Peace. Definitely an interesting one. My 4th of July ended up being way crazier than I expected. I mean, it started out as a pretty chill day, and I thought there was no way anything could go wrong, but man, I was dead wrong. If you enjoy this story, make sure you leave a like on the video, and let's jump into it. So, today's story takes place just yesterday. As I'm recording this, it's July 5th, 7:08 p.m. And this story is all about the 4th of July, which like I said, was just yesterday. Probably one of the most recent stories I've ever told on this channel, honestly. It started off as a normal day. I woke up early in the morning, pretty tired, but excited because it was the 4th of July. The weather was perfect, and I was looking forward to hanging out with my family for a bit, and then heading to a party later that night with some friends. The plan was to see some fireworks, kick back, and just enjoy the holiday. I was convinced it was going to be a great day. Like, I didn't see any way this day could go wrong. Well, I was about to be proven very wrong. So, about 4 hours after waking up, I spent some time with my family. We had our little 4th of July celebration, barbecue, music, the usual, and everything was pretty chill. But after that, I headed over to a friend's house for a party, and that's when things really kicked off. My friend Aaron was hosting this 4th of July party at his place, and he invited all of his friends, which included me and some people I knew. I didn't really know what to expect though, because Aaron had a ton of friends, and that meant a lot of people I didn't know as well. It was shaping up to be a pretty big party, but I trusted Aaron's judgment. I figured he wouldn't invite anyone too crazy, and maybe I'd make some new friends. So, about an hour into the party, things were going great. It was out in Aaron's backyard, there was a bonfire, and people were just hanging out, playing drinking games, chilling, just having a good time. I think there were around 30 or 40 people there at that point. Nothing too out of control. But then, about an hour after that, more people started showing up, and suddenly the crowd almost doubled in size. Now there were like 60 or 65 people packed into Aaron's backyard. And as the night went on, it kept growing. More people were showing up, and no one was leaving. Aaron's backyard wasn't huge, so by the time we got to like 100, maybe even 150 people, it was packed as fuck. It was starting to get a little overwhelming, but even then, there weren't any major issues. No fights, no drama, just a lot of people. Everyone was pretty chill and respectful, and we were all just vibing. And then this one drunk asshole showed up, and I didn't know this guy, and apparently neither did Aaron. We'll just call him John since I never caught his actual name. But yeah, John showed up, and he was already wasted. He didn't drive, thankfully. Someone had dropped him off, but the dude was a complete mess. He stumbles into the backyard, and immediately he yells, "What's up, fuckers? The party has arrived." And I swear, everyone just looked at him like, who the fuck is this guy? He killed the vibe instantly. People were not having it. This one guy I knew at the party, AJ, was especially not having it. AJ didn't like how obnoxious John was being, and I could tell right away that there was gonna be a problem if John kept up his bullshit. So, AJ goes up to Aaron, the host of the party, and he's like, "Yo, who the fuck is this guy? The one that just pulled up and yelled like a jackass. Do you know him?" And Aaron's like, "Nah man, I have no idea. He must be someone's +1 or something. If he's not hurting anyone, just leave him be." So, AJ decides to let it slide, at least for the moment. He heads back over to where I was hanging out by the bonfire, and we try to just enjoy the night. But of course, John starts being a prick again. He comes over to the bonfire and walks up to me and AJ, and he's like, "Yo, beer pong, let's play some fucking beer pong." And I was like, "Nah man, I'm good. I'm just chilling right now." But John wasn't taking no for an answer. He goes, "Come on, don't be a pussy bro. Let's play some pong, doubles right now." And I'm like, "Nah man, I'm good. Maybe later." But he wouldn't let it go. He's like, "Nah man, not later, fucking now." And then he turns to AJ and goes, "What about you bro? You down?" And AJ just shakes his head, looking pissed. He's like, "Nah, I'm good dude." And John, being the obnoxious piece of shit that he was, says, "Oh, okay, so you guys are both pussies, huh? What are you guys dating or something?" And that was it. That was the final straw for AJ. He stood up, got right in John's face and said, "Listen dude, I don't know who you are or who the fuck invited you, but me and my friend here don't want to play beer pong with you. Take no for an answer and go ask someone else." John gets all butthurt and starts mouthing off. What the fuck, man? Didn't know this party was for a bunch of bitches. You guys are fucking losers. And AJ's not having it. He gets even closer, right up in John's face, and says, "If you insult me or my friend one more time, I'm gonna fucking lay you out, dude. No one wants to deal with your shit." At this point, I'm getting in between them, trying to calm things down. I don't want anyone to fight, especially not on the 4th of July. I just wanted everyone to chill and enjoy the night. But John was too drunk to give a fuck. He decides to throw a punch at AJ. He tries to swing around my head and ends up clipping me in the ear with his arm and barely hitting AJ. The force of his arm kind of hit me more than it hit AJ, to be honest. And that was it for AJ. He saw that as John swinging at both of us and he fucking lost it. AJ threw me out of the way, tackled John to the ground and started throwing punches. He was just raining punches down on this guy, and everyone at the party saw what was happening and ran over to break it up. It didn't last long. Maybe AJ got him 3 or 4 good punches before people pulled him off. Luckily, no one got seriously hurt. I thought that was going to be the end of it. I figured Aaron would kick John out and that would be that. But I was wrong. Shit was just getting started. Aaron comes running over and he's like, "Yo, what the fuck happened?" AJ tells him what went down, and John tries to give his side of the story, but he's so hammered that he's barely making sense. Aaron ends up kicking John out of the party, which made perfect sense. He didn't know this dude, and he was causing all kinds of problems. But John did not take it well. He starts swearing at Aaron, swearing at AJ, swearing at everyone at the party. "Fuck all y'all, this party's lame as fuck anyway. I'm out of here. There's way better parties than this shit." And he starts walking away, flipping everyone off as he goes. Everyone's laughing and booing at him as he walks towards the garage. Now, to leave Aaron's backyard, you had to go through the garage because the backyard was fenced off, and the garage connected to the driveway, so it was easier than going around the entire house. So John goes through the garage, slams the door behind him, and I'm thinking, alright, that's the end of it. He's gone. It's over. But apparently, Aaron had a bunch of fireworks in the garage, like $500 worth of fireworks that he bought to put on a little show for everyone later in the night. And John must have seen them sitting there, because as he's leaving, he starts grabbing them and shoving them in his pockets. He comes back into the backyard, and I see him walking up to me, AJ, and Aaron with this crazy look in his eyes. He pulls out one of the bottle rockets, lights it, and aims it at us. He goes, "Better start running." This psychotic motherfucker couldn't handle the fact that he was too fucked up, got his ass beat, and got kicked out of the party, so he decided to come back and shoot fucking fireworks at us. As soon as I saw him light that bottle rocket, I was out. We all ran in different directions. I had nowhere to hide, so I just fucking dove into Aaron's pool. Fully clothed, shoes, hat, everything. I figured, if I'm underwater, he can't hit me with a fucking firework. So, I'm underwater, and I'm just holding my breath, hearing all the chaos above me. I could hear people yelling, I could hear the fireworks going off, and I even saw someone else cannonball into the pool next to me because they had the same idea. After about 15 seconds, I poked my head up above the water, and I saw John getting tackled by like 5 different people. They took all the fireworks out of his pockets, threw them to the side, and held him down while someone called the cops. 5 minutes later, the cops showed up, and at that point, the party was pretty much over. Everyone was leaving, and they arrested John. Rightfully so, the dude was a fucking idiot. He was trying to shoot bottle rockets at people. And the craziest part, he didn't hit a single person. There were over 100 people in this backyard, and he couldn't hit one person. They were going into the ground, into the air, just everywhere but where he was aiming. And thank God for that, because someone could have gotten seriously hurt. So, yeah, John got arrested. I think they hit him with public intoxication and probably a few other charges. I went home after that, soaked to the bone, and just went to bed. And today, I couldn't wait to tell you guys this story. I think Aaron definitely learned a valuable lesson about throwing huge parties, because sometimes people show up that you don't know, and they end up ruining everything. But yeah, that was my 4th of July. Definitely one of the top 10 craziest party stories I've got. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope your 4th of July was way less eventful than mine. If you liked this story, please leave a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your own story times in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe if you're new. I'll see you guys later. Peace. Let me know if you want any more tweaks or if there's anything else you'd like to add. Yo, what's good everybody? It's Austin here, or Luna. Today's story time is definitely an awkward one, but for once it's not about me. And honestly, that's kind of a relief. It's kind of about me, but mostly not, if that makes sense. You'll get what I mean soon enough. Anyway, today's story time is about the time I caught this kid in my class doing some weird shit. I hope you enjoy it. If you do, leave a like on the video. Also, if you're watching this in the first few hours of it being posted, I'm live right now, so come check that out. Link in the description. Alright, let's jump into it. So, today's story takes place back when I was in 8th grade, my last year of middle school. Honestly, I loved middle school. It was pretty chill because at least where I went, you couldn't really fail. They just passed you no matter what. So even though I kind of sucked at school, I always ended up passing. It was nice in a way. But man, middle school also had some weird ass moments, and this is one of them. The thing about my middle school class was there were a lot of strange kids in it. And I'm not saying that to be mean or anything. Everyone's weird to some degree, right? I'm weird, you're weird, we're all weird in our own way. But there were a few kids in my class who were just on a whole different level of weird, like beyond just quirky. It was like they had no awareness of their surroundings or how they affected the people around them. So, one of these kids was a guy named Eric. We'll just call him Eric at least. Now, Eric was a pretty quiet kid. I talked to him maybe twice the whole year, and he seemed pretty cool whenever we did talk, but he kept to himself a lot. He was super shy, and I never thought much of him. He was just another quiet kid, right? But then, Eric did something in class that I'll literally never forget. This story all starts off like any other normal day in 8th grade. I got up, rolled out of bed, took a shower, got ready for school, the usual morning routine. I went to school, and the first half of the day was pretty uneventful. Nothing out of the ordinary happened until after lunch. After lunch, we had social studies, and we were doing this computer project, so we had to go to the library to work on it. The way the library was set up was pretty straightforward. There were rows of computers like front row, second row, third row, all the way back to row 6 or something like that. If you were in the back row, no one could really see what you were doing unless they were sitting right next to you or walked back there. Eric was in the very last row, and he didn't have anyone sitting next to him. There was one person a few chairs down from him, but no one directly beside him, so he pretty much had total privacy back there, at least until I ended up back there too. We all sat down and got to work on our projects, and everything was normal for the first half of class. I was just chilling, talking to a friend of mine, working on my project, and all was good. But then, randomly, my computer just shut off. It turned off completely, mid-project, and I lost a bunch of my work. I couldn't get it to turn back on either. I called the teacher over like, "Yo, my computer just shut off. I don't know what happened." The teacher called over a couple of the library staff to try and fix it, but no one could get it to work. So, my teacher tells me, "You know what, Austin, just go to the back. There are some free computers back there. Sign in on one of those and keep working." I was like, "Alright, cool." So, I got up and went to the back row, and as I was walking up next to Eric, I noticed something that I don't think anyone wants to notice in the middle of a school day. I see Eric sitting at his computer, just casually browsing fucking Pornhub. Yeah, no joke. Dude was on Pornhub, scrolling through the homepage, looking at the thumbnails, trying to decide which video to watch, and I was just like, what the fuck? I did a double take because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I thought maybe I was imagining things, but nope, he was actually doing that. Now, I had a couple of options here. I could have yelled at Eric right then and there, made a scene, and embarrassed the hell out of him, or I could sit down next to him and quietly tell him to close that shit and wait until he got home. I decided to go with the second option. I figured I'd give the guy a break, even though what he was doing was beyond stupid. So I sit down next to him, and the second I do, he quickly closes out of the window like he's trying to hide it. He had no idea I already saw it. I open up my project and look over at him, and he looks back at me all nervous and shit like, "What? What's up?" And I'm like, "Nothing, man." And he goes, "Why are you looking at my computer?" He was starting to get defensive, and I just looked at him and said, "Eric, bro, you shouldn't be on Pornhub in the middle of the school library. That's not what you should be doing right now." He immediately starts denying it. He's like, "What are you talking about? I wasn't on Pornhub. You're tripping, dude." And I'm like, "Bro, I saw you exit out of the window. I'm not gonna embarrass you right now by making you open up your history, but I know it's still there. Dude, don't do that shit in the middle of a library. If the teacher saw you, or if anyone else walked by, you'd be in so much fucking trouble." He kept trying to deny it, but I wasn't letting it go. I was like, "Dude, I saw it when I walked up behind you, and I saw you close it when I sat down. Stop lying." And he's like, "I'm not lying, man." So I said, "Alright, then open up your history." And he's like, "Nah, I'm good. You're being weird." I just looked at him and said, "Okay, that answers that." And then I asked, "Wait, how did you even get on that site anyway? Isn't it blocked?" He looks at me and just says, "VPN." Right there, the truth came out. He admitted it. He was on Pornhub, using a VPN to get around the school's filter. I just shook my head and said, "Alright man, listen, from this point forward, if you're gonna go on that website, just do it at home. If you get caught doing that at school again, you're either gonna get expelled or everyone's just gonna think you're the biggest fucking weirdo ever, so don't do it again." He just nodded and said, "Alright man, thanks for looking out." I was like, "No problem, dude," and went back to working on my project. Now, you're probably wondering if Eric learned his lesson or if he kept doing dumb shit like that. Well, guess what? Later that day, during another class, I hear the announcements come on over the intercom and they ask for Eric to come to the principal's office. I remember thinking, oh shit, maybe Eric's getting picked up early or something, or maybe he's in trouble. I wasn't sure. The next day, Eric wasn't at school, and then he wasn't there the day after that either. And then on the third day, he finally came back. So at lunch, I went up to him and asked, yo, what happened? Where were you the last couple of days? I heard your name on the announcements and then you just disappeared. He looks at me and says, alright, if I tell you something, you can't tell anyone, okay? I was like, sure man, what's up? He goes, remember that day in the library when you caught me on Pornhub? I was like, yeah. And he says, well, I didn't know this, but apparently the school can see everything we look up. They saw what I was looking at that day and they called me into the office. I ended up getting suspended for a couple of days. I was like, damn, dude. And he just nodded and said, yeah, but honestly, it could have been worse. The whole school could have found out. And he was right. He was really fucking lucky. Because if anyone else had caught him doing what he was doing, they probably would have told everyone. It would have been all over the school in no time. It was kind of funny, I can't lie, but I kept it to myself. So, yeah, Eric definitely learned his lesson. He never did that shit again, at least not in school. And if there's any moral to this story, it's this. Wait until you're fucking home, okay? Don't pull an Eric. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this story time. It was definitely an interesting one. If you did, please leave a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. And feel free to leave your own story times in the comments down below and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you guys all later. Peace. Yo, what's good guys? It's Austin here, or Luna. Today's story time is definitely a funny one of those classic OG type of stories. I don't know, the stories I've been telling the last few days kind of remind me of when I first started making YouTube videos. It gives me that same old feeling and I hope you guys enjoy it. If you do, leave a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. Also, I've been live every day. I'm going to stop plugging it in every video, but just so you know, every time one of my videos goes up, I'm usually live at the first link in the description, so come check that out. I'll probably be leaking music and hanging out with you guys. Anyway, let's get into today's story time. So, this story takes place when I was in 9th grade. 9th grade was really when I started becoming a complete and utter idiot. Like, if you think about the craziest story times, a lot of them are from my freshman year. It's kind of funny because for most people, high school starts tame and gradually gets wilder. But for me, it was like the opposite. I started out wild as fuck and then slowly got my shit together as I got older. Anyway, today's story time takes place during my freshman year of high school. The day started off pretty normal, but things escalated pretty quickly. So I woke up really late that day, like 5 minutes before the bus was supposed to show up at my house. My mom was already at work and I had no time to get ready, so I made a decision. I just wasn't gonna go to school. I was like, fuck it, I'll just let the bus go by, miss it on purpose, and then tell my mom I couldn't get a ride. I'll skip today. That was my thought process, and yeah, it definitely shows just how much I didn't give a shit back then. So 5 minutes later, the bus pulls up, waits at my house for like a minute, and then drives off, and I was like, alright, cool, now what? I had the whole day ahead of me, and I had a bunch of options. I could play video games, go to the mall, get some food. I had like 20 bucks in my room, so I figured I'd go grab something to eat. The possibilities were endless, you know? So, I went downstairs and decided to start my day off by live streaming. It was like 7 in the morning, and I was live streaming myself playing Modern Warfare 2. I had maybe 3 viewers the entire time. Definitely not the ideal time to be streaming, but I didn't care. I streamed for about 45 minutes, and after that, I decided to go out and get some food. While I was getting food, my phone starts ringing. It's my mom, and I already knew what this was about. Every time I skipped school or missed the bus, the school would call my mom and tell her that I wasn't there. So I answered the phone and my mom goes, hey, why aren't you in school? And I was like, oh, I missed the bus. She says, and you didn't tell me? I tried to play it off. I thought I texted you. And she's like, don't give me that bullshit, you didn't text me. And I was like, oh, my bad. Then she goes, alright, well, I'm gonna try and find you a ride to school. If I can't find one, you're grounded. I was like, yeah, whatever. I didn't care at all. 5 minutes later, she calls me back and tells me she couldn't find a ride and that when she got home, I was getting everything taken away. My phone, my Xbox, everything. And I was like, okay, sure. I was just being a little shit, completely unfazed. About an hour later, I was sitting around bored out of my mind, not sure what to do. So I called up 2 of my friends who were at school and it was lunchtime. I asked them, yo, what are you guys doing after school? They said, nothing, what about you? I said, nothing. This is probably my last day for a while where I can actually do something fun because my mom's gonna take all my shit. So you guys wanna hang out? They were down, so they told me to meet them in front of the school after it let out. Now, my school wasn't close to where I lived, not even a little bit, but I was like, you know what? Fuck it. So, at about 1 PM, I hopped on my bike and started riding to school. The school let out at around 2:50, so I had about 2 hours to get there. And let me tell you, it was a hell of a ride. I had to haul ass to make it in time. It took me almost a full 2 hours to get there, but I made it. By the time I got there, I was drenched in sweat, out of breath, just looking like shit. My two friends come out, take one look at me, and they're like, "Dude, you look fucking awful." And I was like, "Yeah, I just biked all the way here." They asked how far it was, and I said, "I don't even know, but it was far." So I finally catch my breath and I ask, "Alright, what do you guys want to do?" They say, "Want to smoke some weed?" And I was always down for that, so I said, "Hell yeah, let's do it." But we had a problem. We couldn't go back to their houses because their parents were home, and we definitely couldn't go back to mine. So I was like, "Fuck it, let's go to the woods across the street." We cross the street, head into the woods, and my friend Connor pulls out a joint that he had stashed in his backpack. We start smoking, just talking and laughing, when all of a sudden we hear twigs snapping behind us, like someone or something was moving through the woods. We all froze. I don't know if it was the weed, the paranoia, or just the situation, but we all started freaking out. I thought it was a fucking bear, or worse, someone catching us smoking. I grabbed my backpack and said, "Yo, we need to get out of here." My friends grabbed their shit and we all took off running. As we were running, we heard someone shout, "Stop right there." And right then, I knew it wasn't an animal. I turned around and sure enough, it was a fucking cop, the school police officer to be exact. The same cop who knew us all by face and name. I was like, shit, we're fucked. We had two choices. We could stop and let him take us back to the school and call our parents, or we could just keep running and deal with the consequences later. And of course, we chose the second option. We kept running, made it out of the woods, and crossed the street back to the school. We were way ahead of the cop and we lost sight of him. We ran around to the back of the school and slipped in through one of the back entrances, running into an empty classroom to hide. We sat in that classroom for a good 10 minutes, just trying to catch our breath, wondering what the hell we were gonna do next. Hiding inside the school wasn't the smartest idea, especially considering the cop worked there. He was gonna find us eventually. So, we came up with a quick plan. I said, "Alright, here's what we're gonna do. We'll run outside, grab my bike, and someone can hop on the pegs while the other one runs next to us. We'll just get the hell out of here and go back to my house." Now, we couldn't go to their houses because their parents were home, but my mom didn't get home until late, like 9 at night, so we figured we'd be safe there for a while. We ran out of the back of the school, sprinted to the front, and I grabbed my bike. The cop was nowhere to be seen. One of my friends hopped on the pegs, the other ran next to us, and we took off towards my house. It was a long-ass ride, 2 hours, but we made it. When we got to my place, we had about 3 hours until my mom got home. We just chilled, played some Call of Duty, smoked a little more, and tried to enjoy our last moments of freedom before everything fell apart. And let me tell you, I'll never forget the feeling of hearing the garage door open when my mom got home. She walked in, saw all three of us sitting there, high as kites, playing Call of Duty, and she just goes, "Alright everyone, get in the car, I'm taking you all home." I heard what happened. The principal called me. "You're all in a lot of trouble." So we all got up to get in the car, but she stopped me and said, "Not you, Austin. You're staying here. You're grounded. 6 months." And I was like, 6 months? She was dead serious. My friends looked at me with these "damn, that sucks" expressions, and my mom drove them home. The principal had already called their parents, so they knew what happened. My friends got grounded too, and the next day at school, I met up with them and asked, "Yo, how long are you guys grounded for?" They both said, 1 month. I was like, 1 fucking month? I got 6. It felt like I got a fucking jail sentence compared to them. But I guess I deserved it. I mean, from the moment I decided not to go to school, I was just digging myself into a deeper and deeper hole. So, yeah, that's the story. The moral here is, 9th grade Austin was a little shit and you probably shouldn't be like him. Oh, and it gets even better. When we got back to school the next day, we saw the school cop. He pulled us aside and said, "Hey, if I ever catch you guys doing something like that again and you run from me, I'm calling him back up and we're gonna arrest you." So that was fun to hear. Luckily, we didn't get arrested or end up in a ton of trouble with the cops. It was mainly our parents we had to deal with. In the end, my mom said I was grounded for 6 months, but it ended up being more like 3 because she gave up on it halfway through. Still, it felt like forever. It was just a classic case of me being a dumbass teenager. But yeah, that's it for today's story. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your story times in the comments down below and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all later. Peace. Yo, what's good guys? It's Austin here, or Luna. Today's story time is definitely a wild one, a crazy one for sure. Before I jump into it, I just gotta say, disclaimer, don't go repeating anything I talk about in these story times. They're for entertainment purposes only. But today's story, man, it's wild and I hope you enjoy it. If you do, leave a like on the video and let's jump right into it. So, today's story takes place when I was in 10th grade. Back then, I was definitely a bit of a fuck up. I got myself into a lot of trouble, usually of my own doing, but this particular situation wasn't entirely my fault for once. It all starts on what seemed like a regular day. I woke up in the morning, jumped out of bed, took a shower, got ready for school. I had to skip breakfast because I was running late, so I rushed out and headed for the bus. Now, I don't know if it was just one of those days or if it was because I skipped breakfast, but as soon as I stepped off the bus and into the school building, I got hit with the worst migraine ever. I'm not the type of person who gets migraines a lot. Every now and then, I'll get one, but they're pretty rare. So, getting one that quickly and that intensely was super weird. My first thought was that it had to be because I hadn't eaten. So, I went upstairs to the cafeteria to grab something, and I ended up eating there for about 5 minutes. Honestly, I'm not much of a breakfast person. I skip it most days, which is a shitty habit, and I definitely don't recommend it. But anyway, I grabbed something to eat, hoping it would make the migraine go away. After that, I went downstairs to my first period class, and for some reason, the migraine just kept getting worse. I put my head down at one point because I felt so nauseous. I honestly thought I was going to throw up. While I was sitting there with my head down, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I looked up, and it was this dude who sat in front of me. I didn't really know this guy well. The only thing I knew about him was his name, Brian, and the fact that Brian liked to party. I saw him at almost every party I went to in high school, and he was always the most fucked up one there. That's all I knew about him. Brian looked at me and said, "Yo, are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm good. Just got a headache." He asked, "Yeah, migraine?" I said, "Yeah, man, I don't know why. I never get these." And then he said, "You want something for it?" I replied, "You got something? I need a Tylenol or an Advil or something." Brian reached into his backpack and pulled out this little white bottle with no label on it. The label had been ripped off. He opened it up and poured a pill into my hand. I looked at it and asked, "What are these?" Because let's be real, it was sketchy as fuck. No label, the pill didn't look familiar. I had no idea what it was. Brian just said, "Oh, it's Tylenol." I looked at it and said, "Really? It doesn't look like Tylenol." He said, "Yeah, it's off-brand shit. I get migraines too, so I keep this on me all the time." So I took it. I figured, Brian had no reason to lie to me. Why would he drug me? He had no reason to do that. That was my first mistake, trusting someone like that without thinking it through. Let me just say, never take medicine from some random person, especially if you have no idea what it is. It was so stupid of me to do that. And, as you can probably guess, things did not go well from there. I took the pill and didn't think much of it. The rest of first period was fine. The headache started to fade a little, and I thought everything was cool. Then I got to my second period class, and that's when shit started to get really weird. As soon as I sat down, I started feeling different. Like, really different. I felt tired and sluggish, and my whole body felt warm, almost too warm. It felt like my muscles were turning into pudding. I don't know how else to describe it. It was like my muscles were slowly melting into jello, and I was just super relaxed. I felt like if I closed my eyes, I could have slept for 8 hours right there in class. At first, I thought it was just a migraine. Sometimes when I get migraines, I get really nauseous and tired, so I just figured it was the migraine doing its thing. But then I realized the migraine was fading away, and I was still feeling incredibly tired, like more and more tired by the minute. And honestly, at that point, I completely forgot that I had taken that pill. It didn't even cross my mind that it could be what was making me feel like that. I tried to go about my day as normally as possible, but halfway through the period, things got even worse. I started feeling nauseous again. I could barely move, and when I tried to stand up to sharpen my pencil, I could barely walk. It was terrifying. When I sat back down, my friend Ethan, who sat next to me, noticed something was up. He looked at me and said, "Yo, are you okay?" And I just mumbled, "Yeah." He said, "Are you sure? You look sick." I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." But even as I was saying it, I started slurring my words, and that's when I realized, oh shit, something's really wrong. No migraine makes you slur your words like that. That usually means something much more serious is going on. I started to freak out, but I was so tired I could barely react. Ethan kept trying to talk to me. He asked, "Do you need to go to the nurse?" And I was like, No, I'm fine." He said, "Are you sure? What's going on?" I replied, "I don't know. I had a migraine earlier." And then it hit me. I remembered the pill. I said, "Oh, I took something for it." He looked at me. "You took something for it? What did you take?" I said, "Just some off-brand Tylenol." He asked, "Off-brand Tylenol? From where? The nurse?" I shook my head. "No, I got it from Brian." Immediately, Ethan's eyes went wide. "Brian? Brian gave you something?" I said, "Yeah." He looked at me and said, "Dude, Brian's a pill popper. You know that, right? He probably gave you something that's not what you think it is." I tried to defend Brian. Nah, he wouldn't do that. It'd be a waste of money for him. Ethan shook his head and said, "Dude, I've seen him do worse." Now I was really freaking out, but at the same time, I was basically just a puddle in my chair, unable to move. And of course, while I was talking to Ethan, my teacher noticed and called me out. "Austin, do you have something you'd like to share with the class?" I said, "No." She asked, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yeah, can I go to the nurse?" She sighed. "Okay, go ahead." So I got up, grabbed my backpack, and slowly made my way out of the classroom. I felt like I was walking through quicksand. I went upstairs to the nurse's office, told her I wasn't feeling well, and lay down on one of the beds. I ended up staying in the nurse's office for the rest of the day. I was there from third period all the way until the final bell rang. I was just sleeping, waking up every time the bell rang, and the nurse would come over and ask if I was feeling better. I kept telling her, "No, I just need to sleep." When the last bell rang, the nurse woke me up and said, "Hey, it's time to go home." I was so out of it, I didn't even realize the day was over. I still felt nauseous and groggy, but at least I could move now. I could stand up, I wasn't slurring my words anymore, and things felt a little bit clearer. The nurse asked, "Did you not sleep last night or something?" And I just said, "Honestly, I don't know." She gave me a weird look. "You don't know?" I said, "I slept, but I don't think I should be this tired." She said, "Alright, well, just go home and get some more rest. If it gets worse, go see a doctor." I nodded and left, got on the bus, and went home. The rest of the day was pretty normal, nothing else happened. The next morning is when the story really comes to a close. I woke up, took a shower, ate some breakfast, and was feeling way better. No migraine, no weird grogginess, just back to normal. I got to school early, and when I got to my first period class, I saw Brian sit down in front of me. I tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Yo, Brian." He turned around smiling like he knew what was coming. I said, "Be honest with me, did you give me some shit yesterday that wasn't Tylenol?" He looked at me, still smiling. "Why do you say that?" He even started giggling a little. I wasn't having it. "Bro, nothing's fucking funny. Did you give me something? Like, a painkiller, a muscle relaxer? What was it? Because I felt that shit, and it was not Tylenol. What did you give me?" He started laughing harder and finally said, Okay. It may or may not have been one of my mom's muscle relaxers." To this day, I don't think I've ever been that angry in my entire fucking life. I'm usually not the type to get violent, but I remember feeling so much rage. I didn't even think about it. I just wound back and punched him square in the face, right there in the middle of class while the teacher was talking. It was so loud the entire class turned to look. Brian's head snapped back and he grabbed his face, yelling, "Dude, what the fuck?" The teacher looked shocked and just said, "Austin, get out of here right now. Go to the main office." So I grabbed my stuff and went to the main office. I sat down and the principal called me in. He said, "Austin, do you want to explain what you just did?" I said, "Yeah, I punched Brian in the face." The principal asked, "Why?" And I just said, "No reason. I didn't want to snitch, even though I probably should have." The principal knew I wasn't telling the truth. Everyone at my school knew I wasn't a violent person. I'd never hit anyone without a reason, and my principal knew that. He kept pushing me, saying, "Austin, tell the truth. I know you didn't just do this for no reason." But I didn't say anything, so I got suspended for 2 weeks. Honestly, I deserved it. What I did wasn't right. I shouldn't have hit Brian, even though what he did was unbelievably fucked up. He lied to me about what he was giving me, and that's dangerous as hell. But still, violence isn't the answer, and I got what I deserved. Needless to say, Brian and I didn't talk after that. Luckily, I didn't hurt him too badly, just a cut on his lip. No broken teeth or anything, but I think he learned a valuable lesson about not giving people random pills, and I learned a valuable lesson about not taking shit when I don't know what it is. So, yeah, moral of the story, don't do anything I talked about in this story. Just don't. If you're not feeling well, go to the nurse, get proper help, and if someone offers you a random pill, just say no. Anyway, that's the story. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your story times in the comments down below and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all later. Peace. Yo, what's good guys? It's Austin here, or Luna. Today's story time is definitely a wild one, a crazy one for sure. Before I jump into it, I just gotta say, disclaimer, don't go repeating anything I talk about in these story times. They're for entertainment purposes only. But today's story, man, it's wild and I hope you enjoy it. If you do, leave a like on the video and let's jump right into it. So, today's story takes place when I was in 10th grade. Back then, I was definitely a bit of a fuck up. I got myself into a lot of trouble, usually of my own doing, but this particular situation wasn't entirely my fault for once. It all starts on what seemed like a regular day. I woke up in the morning, jumped out of bed, took a shower, got ready for school. I had to skip breakfast because I was running late, so I rushed out and headed for the bus. Now, I don't know if it was just one of those days or if it was because I skipped breakfast, but as soon as I stepped off the bus and into the school building, I got hit with the worst migraine ever. I'm not the type of person who gets migraines a lot. Every now and then I'll get one, but they're pretty rare. So, getting one that quickly and that intensely was super weird. My first thought was that it had to be because I hadn't eaten. So, I went upstairs to the cafeteria to grab something, and I ended up eating there for about 5 minutes. Honestly, I'm not much of a breakfast person. I skip it most days, which is a shitty habit, and I definitely don't recommend it. But anyway, I grabbed something to eat, hoping it would make the migraine go away. After that, I went downstairs to my first period class, and for some reason, the migraine just kept getting worse. I put my head down at one point because I felt so nauseous. I honestly thought I was going to throw up. While I was sitting there with my head down, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I looked up, and it was this dude who sat in front of me. I didn't really know this guy well. The only thing I knew about him was his name, Brian, and the fact that Brian liked to party. I saw him at almost every party I went to in high school, and he was always the most fucked up one there. That's all I knew about him. Brian looked at me and said, "Yo, are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm good, just got a headache." He asked, "Yeah, migraine?" I said, "Yeah, man, I don't know why, I never get these." And then he said, "You want something for it?" I replied, "You got something? I need a Tylenol or an Advil or something." Brian reached into his backpack and pulled out this little white bottle with no label on it. The label had been ripped off. He opened it up and poured a pill into my hand. I looked at it and asked, "What are these?" Because let's be real, it was sketchy as fuck. No label, the pill didn't look familiar. I had no idea what it was. Brian just said, "Oh, it's Tylenol." I looked at it and said, "Really? It doesn't look like Tylenol." He said, "Yeah, it's off-brand shit. I get migraines too, so I keep this on me all the time." So I took it. I figured, Brian had no reason to lie to me. Why would he drug me? He had no reason to do that. That was my first mistake, trusting someone like that without thinking it through. Let me just say, never take medicine from some random person, especially if you have no idea what it is. It was so stupid of me to do that. And, as you can probably guess, things did not go well from there. I took the pill and didn't think much of it. The rest of first period was fine. The headache started to fade a little and I thought everything was cool. Then I got to my second period class and that's when shit started to get really weird. As soon as I sat down, I started feeling different. Like really different. I felt tired and sluggish and my whole body felt warm. Almost too warm. It felt like my muscles were turning into pudding. I don't know how else to describe it. It was like my muscles were slowly melting into jello and I was just super relaxed. I felt like if I closed my eyes, I could have slept for 8 hours right there in class. At first, I thought it was just the migraine. Sometimes when I get migraines, I get really nauseous and tired, so I just figured it was the migraine doing its thing. But then I realized the migraine was fading away and I was still feeling incredibly tired, like more and more tired by the minute. And honestly, at that point, I completely forgot that I had taken that pill. It didn't even cross my mind that it could be what was making me feel like that. I tried to go about my day as normally as possible, but halfway through the period, things got even worse. I started feeling nauseous again. I could barely move, and when I tried to stand up to sharpen my pencil, I could barely walk. It was terrifying. When I sat back down, my friend Ethan, who sat next to me, noticed something was up. He looked at me and said, "Yo, are you okay?" And I just mumbled, "Yeah." He said, "Are you sure? You look sick." I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." But even as I was saying it, I started slurring my words, and that's when I realized, oh shit, something's really wrong. No migraine makes you slur your words like that. That usually means something much more serious is going on. I started to freak out, but I was so tired I could barely react. Ethan kept trying to talk to me. He asked, "Do you need to go to the nurse?" And I was like, No, I'm fine." He said, "Are you sure? What's going on?" I replied, "I don't know. I had a migraine earlier." And then it hit me. I remembered the pill. I said, "Oh, I took something for it." He looked at me. "You took something for it? What did you take?" I said, "Just some off-brand Tylenol." He asked, "Off-brand Tylenol? From where? The nurse?" I shook my head. "No, I got it from Brian." Immediately, Ethan's eyes went wide. "Brian? Brian gave you something?" I said, "Yeah." He looked at me and said, "Dude, Brian's a pill popper. You know that, right? He probably gave you something that's not what you think it is." I tried to defend Brian. Nah, he wouldn't do that. It'd be a waste of money for him. Ethan shook his head and said, "Dude, I've seen him do worse." Now I was really freaking out, but at the same time, I was basically just a puddle in my chair, unable to move. And of course, while I was talking to Ethan, my teacher noticed and called me out. "Austin, do you have something you'd like to share with the class?" I said, "No." She asked, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yeah, can I go to the nurse?" She sighed, "Okay, go ahead." So I got up, grabbed my backpack, and slowly made my way out of the classroom. I felt like I was walking through quicksand. I went upstairs to the nurse's office, told her I wasn't feeling well, and lay down on one of the beds. I ended up staying in the nurse's office for the rest of the day. I was there from third period all the way until the final bell rang. I was just sleeping, waking up every time the bell rang, and the nurse would come over and ask if I was feeling better. I kept telling her, no, I just need to sleep. When the last bell rang, the nurse woke me up and said, hey, it's time to go home. I was so out of it, I didn't even realize the day was over. I still felt nauseous and groggy, but at least I could move now. I could stand up, I wasn't slurring my words anymore, and things felt a little bit clearer. The nurse asked, did you not sleep last night or something? And I just said, honestly, I don't know. She gave me a weird look. You don't know? I said, I slept, but I don't think I should be this tired. She said, all right, well, just go home and get some more rest. If it gets worse, go see a doctor. I nodded and left, got on the bus, and went home. The rest of the day was pretty normal, nothing else happened. The next morning is when the story really comes to a close. I woke up, took a shower, ate some breakfast, and was feeling way better. No migraine, no weird grogginess, just back to normal. I got to school early, and when I got to my first period class, I saw Brian sit down in front of me. I tapped him on the shoulder and said, yo, Brian. He turned around, smiling like he knew what was coming. I said, be honest with me, did you give me some shit yesterday that wasn't Tylenol? He looked at me, still smiling. Why do you say that? He even started giggling a little. I wasn't having it. Bro, nothing's fucking funny. Did you give me something? Like a painkiller? A muscle relaxer? What was it? Because I felt that shit, and it was not Tylenol. What did you give me? He started laughing harder and finally said, okay, it may or may not have been one of my mom's muscle relaxers. To this day, I don't think I've ever been that angry in my entire fucking life. I'm usually not the type to get violent, but I remember feeling so much rage. I didn't even think about it. I just wound back and punched him square in the face, right there in the middle of class while the teacher was talking. It was so loud the entire class turned to look. Brian's head snapped back and he grabbed his face, yelling, dude, what the fuck? The teacher looked shocked and just said, Austin, get out of here right now. Go to the main office. So I grabbed my stuff and went to the main office. I sat down and the principal called me in. He said, Austin, do you want to explain what you just did? I said, yeah, I punched Brian in the face. The principal asked, why? And I just said, no reason. I didn't want to snitch, even though I probably should have. The principal knew I wasn't telling the truth. Everyone at my school knew I wasn't a violent person. I'd never hit anyone without a reason, and my principal knew that. He kept pushing me, saying, Austin, tell the truth. I know you didn't just do this for no reason. But I didn't say anything, so I got suspended for 2 weeks. Honestly, I deserved it. What I did wasn't right. I shouldn't have hit Brian, even though what he did was unbelievably fucked up. He lied to me about what he was giving me, and that's dangerous as hell. But still, violence isn't the answer, and I got what I deserved. Needless to say, Brian and I didn't talk after that. Luckily, I didn't hurt him too badly, just a cut on his lip. No broken teeth or anything. But I think he learned a valuable lesson about not giving people random pills, and I learned a valuable lesson about not taking shit when I don't know what it is. So, yeah, moral of the story, don't do anything I talked about in this story. Just don't. If you're not feeling well, go to the nurse, get proper help. And if someone offers you a random pill, just say no. Anyway, that's the story. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your story times in the comments down below and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all later. Peace. Yo, what's good guys? It's Austin here, or Luna. Today's story time is an interesting one, definitely a crazy one. Before I jump into this, I just want to say that I'm live right now, so if you want to come hang out, I'm leaking some new music, maybe playing some games, maybe just chatting. Check it out, first link in the description. Anyway, let's jump into today's story. This story takes place back when I was in 10th grade. This one is a bit different from the last one though. It involves me screwing up, and honestly, I screwed up pretty big this time. So, let's just get into it. It all starts off as a normal morning. I woke up really early to get ready for school, just doing my usual morning routine. I went out to the kitchen, and before I left to get on the bus, I checked the family calendar my mom kept on the wall. It was one of those big ass calendars that she'd write everything on, like her schedule, my brother's schedules, and even mine. It helped her keep everything organized. I looked at the calendar and I noticed something written down for Thursday. Austin, no school. I jumped for fucking joy, dude. You know that feeling when you find out you don't have school, like when there's a snow day or a holiday you didn't realize was coming up? That's exactly how I felt. It was the best feeling in the world. I was like, holy shit, no school today? I couldn't believe it. I ran into my mom's room and was like, "Mom, do I have off today?" She looked up at me, half awake, and said, "Yeah." I was so hyped, like, "Oh, awesome." She laughed a little and said, "Yeah, but I still have to go to work, so have fun sitting at home by yourself." I was like, "I will." So, my mom got ready and left for work, and there I was, home alone for the day. I went into the living room, kicked back, put on some cartoons, and just started enjoying my day. But, you know how it goes. When you're a teenager with too much time on your hands, you start having some interesting thoughts. I started thinking, I'm home alone all day. My mom's at work, my brothers are at school, and I'm just here by myself. What could I do to make today a little more interesting? Now, around this time, I had some shrooms stashed under my bed from not too long ago. I thought, why not trip today? No one's gonna be home, no one's gonna know. So, I got up, ate a quick bowl of cereal because I hadn't eaten anything yet, and then went into my room to grab the shrooms. I sat back down in the living room and just started eating them. No hesitation, no second thoughts, just straight into it. I was ready for a solo trip, and I had never done that before. It was my first time tripping entirely alone with no friends around, no distractions. Part of me was excited, but another part of me was nervous. Still, I just went for it. So, there I was, eating the shrooms, thinking, this is gonna be chill, nothing's gonna happen. Yeah, I was wrong about that. Fast forward about an hour later, and I was starting to feel it. I was getting giggly, seeing some visuals, the usual start of a shroom trip. Everything seemed like it was going to be fine. And then, about 20 minutes later, my phone started ringing. I looked down and it was my mom calling me. I thought, that's weird. I was faced with two options: either answer the phone and risk talking to my mom while I'm just starting to trip, or ignore it and keep enjoying myself. Naturally, I chose to ignore it. A few seconds later, my phone started ringing again. It was my mom calling me back. I thought, okay, maybe this is important if she's calling twice. But I still wasn't feeling confident enough to talk to her while I was starting to trip, so I ignored it again. Instead, I shot her a text. Hey, what's up? She texted me back right away. Don't. Hey, what's up, me? Just answer the phone. And then she called again. I thought, okay, fine, I guess I have to. So, I answered the phone. I was like, hey. And she said, guess what? I was like, what? And then she hit me with it. You have school today. I misread the calendar. It's actually tomorrow you have off, not today. I literally thought the shrooms were making me hear shit. I was like, what did you just say? And she repeated herself, you have school today. You don't have off until tomorrow. I was just sitting there, stunned. I said, well, I already missed the bus, so how do you expect me to get there? She replied, I don't know. Ride your bike, have someone pick you up, figure it out. I tried to think of an excuse. Mom, I can't. No one I know drives. That was a lie. I definitely had friends who drove. I just didn't want to go to school. She sighed. Okay, well, I'm going to ask my boss if I can come get you. And she hung up. I started to freak out. The trip was kicking in full force, and now I had to go to school? I ran into my room and started getting dressed as quickly as I could. I was definitely not in the right headspace for school, but I figured I had no choice. About 10 minutes later, I heard my mom pull into the driveway and beep the horn. I grabbed my stuff, went outside, and got in the car. She looked at me and said, all right, you ready for school? I just mumbled, nope, not really. She laughed. Yeah, I know. Sorry about that. I wrote it down wrong on the calendar. But hey, at least you have off tomorrow. I tried to play along. Yeah, that's good. But in my head, I was thinking, there's no fucking way I'm tripping tomorrow, that's for sure. Let me tell you, that drive to school was one of the weirdest drives I've ever had. I was looking out the window, seeing things on the street that definitely shouldn't be moving. We passed this big-ass mailbox, and I swear I saw it move its legs like it was walking. Obviously, mailboxes don't have legs, but this one was definitely wiggling. Yeah, it was probably just the shrooms, but still, it was fucking weird. We finally got to school, and this is where things really went downhill. I walked into the building, went up to the front desk, and tried to explain myself. Hey, sorry I'm late. My mom wrote down the wrong day on the calendar. She thought today was a day off. The lady at the front desk just nodded. It's okay, go to your class. I walked down the hallway to my third period class. It was halfway through by the time I got there. I opened the door and immediately every head in the room turned to look at me. I was tripping balls and all these people were just staring at me. My teacher looked at me and said, Austin, glad you could join us. Have a seat. I sat down at my desk and she told me to turn to a certain page in the textbook. I started flipping through it and for some reason I could not find the page. I was looking over at other people's books, trying to follow along, but everything was moving. The pictures on the page were shifting, the words were dancing. It was so hard to focus. I leaned over to the girl sitting next to me and whispered, Hey, what page are we on again? She looked at me like I was an idiot. Page 38, didn't you hear the teacher? I just said, Sorry. She rolled her eyes and repeated, "Page 38. The teacher noticed I was struggling and called me out. "Austin, are you okay?" I looked up and said, "Yeah, just couldn't find the page." She said, "Page 38. I nodded, "Okay, 38. I kept trying to find it, but I just couldn't. I don't know if it was the shrooms or if I was just being an idiot, but I couldn't do it. The teacher ended up coming over to my desk, flipping to the page for me, and then, as if things couldn't get worse, she asked me to read a section out loud to the entire class. I was tripping, trying to read these words that were moving all over the page, and now I had to read them out loud to everyone. I have public speaking anxiety even on a good day. You put me in front of 30 people on shrooms, and I might just pass out, but somehow, I did it. I don't know how it looked from anyone else's perspective, but I felt like I killed it. I read the paragraph without messing up too much, and no one laughed at me, so I think I did alright. After I finished reading, I let out the biggest sigh of relief. I was just happy it was over. I looked over at the girl next to me and smiled, just because I was so relieved. She looked at me. "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, I'm just happy that's over." She laughed. "Yeah, I don't like reading in front of the class either." For some reason, maybe it was the shrooms, maybe I was just being stupid, I decided to tell her the truth. I leaned in and said, "Hey, guess what?" She asked, "What?" I said, "I'm tripping right now." She looked at me, confused. "Tripping? Like, what do you mean?" I said, "Like, I took shrooms." She gave me the dirtiest look. "That's pretty stupid, to be honest. Don't do that anymore." And then she just turned away from me. Yeah, I learned my lesson real quick. Don't tell people you're tripping, especially not in school. The rest of the day was actually pretty chill compared to the first couple of classes. I had gym next, and I just kinda sat in the corner, doing nothing. I definitely got a 0 for participation, but it was better than trying to run a mile while on shrooms. By the time I got to my last few classes, I was feeling a lot more mellow. The trip was starting to wear off, and I felt okay enough to get through the rest of the day. But those first 2 periods were hell, pure anxiety and panic. The only other shitty thing that happened was later in the day, I got super nauseous and almost threw up at one point. But luckily, I managed to hold it together. The next day, which I actually had off, I didn't do shit. I just laid around, not even thinking about touching those shrooms. I wanted nothing to do with them after that. So, yeah, moral of the story. Don't do the shit I talked about in this story time because it led to a very unfun day. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this story time. If you did, please leave a like on the video, I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your story times in the comments down below and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all later. Peace. Yo, what's good guys? It's Austin here, or Luna. Today's story time is absolutely wild and definitely reminds me of the old days on this channel. But before we get started, just letting you know that I'm live on Kick right now. I'm going to be chatting, playing this horror game called Escape the Backrooms. Come through and hang out. Anyway, let's jump into today's story. This story is all about the time I caught my teacher doing some, well, not so appropriate shit on school property. I've never told this one before and it's awkward as hell, but it's also pretty funny and I think you guys will enjoy it. So, let's jump in. This all takes place back when I was in 10th grade. Now, most of my 10th grade year was relatively normal. Well, at least as normal as it could be for me. It was only the 3rd month into the school year, so things still felt kind of new. I can't lie, I wasn't going to school much during this time. I skipped quite a bit, so in reality, it was like I'd only been there for a solid month at that point. Anyway, let's get to it. The day started off normal. I got up, took a shower, grabbed some breakfast. For once, I was actually running early. Usually I'd wake up late and either rush to catch the bus or miss it completely, but today I was on time. I got to the bus stop, got on the bus and headed to school. Things went pretty smoothly that day. I got through most of my classes without any issues. Nothing out of the ordinary happened. Now, in 10th grade, I had this English teacher. She was pretty average, honestly. Not overly strict, but definitely not super chill either. Just your typical English teacher. We'll call her Mrs. Smith. She taught the usual stuff, grammar, literature, all that. I didn't know much about her personally, other than one thing I'd heard from my friends. Apparently she had a boyfriend who also worked at the school. I didn't know if he was a teacher, a security guard, or a janitor, just that he worked there. So like I said, most of the day was pretty standard. I made it through all my classes without a hitch. My last period of the day was English, and I went to Mrs. Smith's class, took my seat, and settled in. I was just counting down the minutes till the bell rang so I could go home, hop on some Call of Duty, and just relax. You know how it is. The bell finally rang, and class let out. I grabbed my stuff and headed to my locker, just like everyone else, to get what I needed to go home. I saw Mrs. Smith leave with the rest of the class and head straight out to the parking lot. I figured she was leaving early or grabbing something from her car. I didn't really think much of it. I just went to my locker, grabbed my backpack, and started making my way out towards the buses to go home. As I was heading out, one of my other teachers, my math teacher, saw me and stopped me. He was like, "Austin, I need to talk to you real quick." I was thinking, ugh, really? The bell just rang, dude. I just want to go home, chill out, maybe order some pizza, and relax. But I couldn't just ignore him, so I was like, "Alright, what's up?" He led me over to the side of the hallway by some lockers and started talking about my grades. He was like, "Listen, Austin, we need to talk about your grades. You're not gonna pass this quarter if you don't get them up." I sighed. "Okay, I'll get them up." He shook his head. "You've said that a million times. We need to form a plan here. Can you stay after school today?" I groaned. "Stay after today?" He nodded. "Yeah, I need you to stay after and we can work on getting those grades up." I really wasn't in the mood for this, but he made a good point. So, I asked, "Alright, how many times do you need me to stay after?" He said, "At least a few times." I tried to push it to another day. "Can we start tomorrow?" He shook his head. "I've got someone else tomorrow. Can you do it today?" I sighed. Fine, fine. So, I went back to my locker, put my backpack away, grabbed my math folder, and went back to class with him. We went through some homework and did an hour of after-school work. I wasn't in the mood, but I knew I had to do it if I wanted to pass. After what felt like forever, the bell rang for after-school dismissal and I was finally free. I grabbed my stuff out of my locker and ran outside to catch the after-school bus. But when I got out there, the bus wasn't there. It was running late for some reason. So, I crossed the street to the gas station to grab a Gatorade since I was thirsty. I hung out there for a bit, and when I saw the bus pulling up, I started making my way back to the school parking lot. I was walking back through the teacher's parking lot on my way to the bus, and that's when I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. Someone in one of the parked cars was moving around. I didn't think much of it at first, but I did a double take just to be sure. And man, I was not ready for what I saw. It was my English teacher, Mrs. Smith, and some dude I'd seen around the school. They were getting it on in the car. And I'm not talking about just making out or anything, they were straight up fucking in the car. That car was bouncing up and down like it had hydraulics on it. Some straight up West Coast Customs type shit. I had to do a triple take to make sure I wasn't just seeing things. But nope, there she was. My English teacher, getting it on with this dude in the parking lot. I was in complete shock. I didn't even know what to think. I just stood there for a second like, what the actual fuck am I witnessing? I was about to just walk away and pretend I hadn't seen anything when Mrs. Smith noticed me standing there. She stopped what she was doing and the guy did too. They both looked at me like deer caught in headlights, like they knew they'd just been caught doing the worst possible thing. She quickly rolled down the car window and called out, "Oh, Austin, I'm so sorry." She didn't even try to make up a lie or cover it up. She just straight up apologized. I was like, it's okay, I'm just gonna go home now." And I turned around and started walking away. But she got out of the car and ran after me. She was like, "Austin, wait, please." I stopped and turned around. "What?" She looked so embarrassed. "What did you see?" I gave her a look like, "Do you really want me to describe it in detail?" She just sighed. "I'm so embarrassed right now. That was beyond inappropriate. I'm so sorry." Meanwhile, in my head, I was just thinking, damn, my teacher is on some freaky shit. She couldn't even wait to get home. She had to do it in the faculty parking lot in the middle of the day. She could legit get charged for that. So, I just told her, "Listen, I'm not gonna tell anyone. I'm not gonna rat you out, but you should never do that again." Like, as funny as this whole situation is, if the principal caught you or the school cops saw you, you'd probably go to jail. She nodded. "You're right. You're absolutely right. It was so inappropriate. It won't happen again, I promise. I'm really, really sorry, Austin." I was like, "Alright." And that was that. It felt so weird though. I was basically lecturing my teacher about why she shouldn't be fucking in the parking lot. It was like I was the adult and she was the student. Such a strange dynamic. And you know what? After that day, I never saw her doing anything wild like that in the parking lot again. I did see her boyfriend the next day though and found out that he was the study hall teacher. So yeah, they were both teachers. But I never told anyone about it. I mean, I'm sure some kids would have and I wouldn't blame them for that, but I didn't. She seemed genuinely apologetic, and I figured she'd learned her lesson. The next day, I walked into school and my friends came up to me like, "Yo, did you stay after school yesterday? We didn't see you get on the bus." I was like, "Yeah, I took the after school bus." They asked how it was and I just smirked. "Oh, it was great. I caught a teacher having sex." They all freaked out. "What? Who?" I told them the whole story, minus the names of course. They begged me to tell them who it was, but I wouldn't. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Pretty funny, pretty crazy. Moral of the story? Don't do what my teacher did. It's not only inappropriate, but it's also very illegal, especially on school property. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this story time. If you did, please leave a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your own story times in the comments, and if you're new here, be sure to subscribe. I'll see you guys all later. Peace. Yo, what's good guys? It's Austin here. or Luna. I hope you all are doing well today. I'm doing pretty good myself. First off, I just want to say thank you all so much for the support on Adios, my new song. If you guys haven't heard it yet, I'll put it as the first link in the description. I hope you enjoy it. Also, I'm going to be live on Kick right after this video goes up, so I'll put that link in the description too. Come through if you want to hang out. I'll be playing some games, chatting with you guys, just kicking it. No pun intended. Now, today's story time is definitely a funny, but also kinda creepy one. I hope you enjoy it, and if you do, leave a like on the video. Let's jump right into it. So, this story takes place when I was 18 years old. I had just moved to LA and I was having a pretty good time. I was enjoying myself, things were going pretty smoothly, nothing too out of the ordinary was happening, and honestly, I thought all the weird crazy shit I'd been through was behind me. I thought I left all the swatting, the stalker behavior, and the wild stories back in New York. I thought that moving to LA would mean a fresh start, with nothing like that happening again. But little did I know that was just the beginning of an even crazier chapter in my life. This all takes place about 3 weeks after I'd moved to LA. I'd just gotten settled into my new place. I was living in a house with a few friends. I was just enjoying life, really having a good time. My friends and I decided to throw a party, a kind of housewarming party to celebrate moving in. So, all of us banded together to invite as many people as we could. I didn't have that many friends in LA yet, besides the people I was living with, but my friends had been there for a while and they knew plenty of people to invite, so it was basically a bunch of people I didn't know coming over for this party. By around 7 or 8 p.m, people started showing up and I was meeting a bunch of new faces, just hanging out, saying hello. So far, everyone who showed up seemed really cool, nothing out of the ordinary. The party was going well, but then around 11 p.m. or maybe closer to midnight, things started getting a little weird. I was in the kitchen, just chilling and eating some pizza, talking to some people, when I heard the doorbell ring. I figured more people were arriving for the party, so I went downstairs to open the front door. When I opened the door, there was this group of dudes, probably about 7 or 8 guys. They were all standing there, looking like they were ready to party. I didn't recognize them, so I asked who had invited them, just to make sure they actually knew someone at the house. One of them said, "Jake invited us." And I'm standing there thinking, who the fuck is Jake? No one I lived with was named Jake, so I was like, hold on a sec, let me check. I told him to wait at the door, ran upstairs, and found one of my roommates. I was like, yo, there are some random people at the door. They said some guy named Jake invited them. Do you know a Jake? And my roommate was like, oh yeah, actually I do. Hold on. He went over to this guy named Jake, who was already at the party, and asked if he knew these people. Jake said, yeah, they're chill, you can trust them. So, based on that, we let these random dudes into our house. They were friends of a friend, basically, and we figured it was fine. It's a party, there are tons of people we don't know. What could go wrong, right? Well, a lot went wrong. The rest of the night went fine, for the most part anyway. Everyone was having fun, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. But the next morning, I woke up to a very, very strange situation. So I wake up with a massive headache. I was exhausted. I hadn't gotten much sleep. I dragged myself out of bed, went upstairs, drank some water, took a shower, just trying to wake up and get my day started. I was hungry, so I decided to go down the street to this bagel place and grab a bagel for breakfast. I walked up to the front door where all my shoes were, and when I went to grab a pair, I noticed something. Every single pair of my shoes was missing. And I'm not talking about just one pair. I had like 4 pairs by the front door and all of them were gone. Luckily, they weren't my nicest shoes, just some sandals and Vans, nothing crazy. But still, I was like, what the fuck? Where are my shoes? I went upstairs to my room, where I had some other pairs, put them on, and headed out to grab my bagel. I figured it was weird, but maybe I just misplaced them somehow. When I got back, all my roommates were awake, so I started asking them about it. I was like, yo, did anyone wear my shoes last night? Because I can't find them anywhere. One of my friends was like, what, the ones by the front door? I nodded. Yeah. He shook his head. Nah, I haven't touched them. I asked my other roommates and they all said the same thing. They hadn't touched my shoes. At this point, I'm just thinking, what the fuck? Where could they have gone? I started searching the backyard, went into my friends' rooms. Nothing. I couldn't find these 4 pairs of shoes anywhere. After a while, I just gave up. I figured maybe I put them somewhere weird while I was drunk and I'd find them eventually. So I stopped worrying about it for the rest of the day. Fast forward about a day or two, and I'm just chilling in my room, working on a video, when I get a text from one of my friends back home in New York. He sent me a link, and it was an eBay link. I clicked on it, and the listing title read, YouTuber's Shoes. I thought, nah, no way. I clicked on the listing, and sure enough, there were all 4 pairs of my shoes lined up on a table, with a little piece of paper next to them that had the seller's name written on it. And in the next photo, there was a screenshot of my YouTube channel, along with a photo of me wearing the shoes on Instagram. I was in complete shock. I texted my friend back immediately, "Yo, what the hell is this?" And he replied, "Dude, please tell me this is a troll." I was like, "It's not. I've literally been looking for these shoes all morning and now I know where they are." He texted back, "What the fuck? Who took them?" I replied, "Bro, I wish I knew." So, I started reaching out to people who had been at the party that night, asking if anyone had seen someone take my shoes. No one could give me an answer. I literally started texting everyone who was there. I was getting numbers from my roommates and hitting up everyone who had attended. I must have texted like 30 people and no one had any clue about my shoes. Then, randomly, one of my roommates, let's call him Sam, came up to me. He was like, "Yo, why don't we just check the front door cameras?" I was like, "What front door cameras?" And he goes, "We have cameras here." I was like, "You mean to fucking tell me I've been searching all morning and we have security cameras at the front door? Do they look at the inside or the outside?" He said, "Both." I stared at him. "Wait, we have cameras inside the house too?" He nodded. "Yeah, you didn't know that?" I was like, "No, thanks for mentioning it now, Sam." So we ran upstairs to his room. It was the master bedroom where the camera computer was. He pulled up the footage from the night of the party and we started scrolling through it. Within 5 minutes, we found exactly what we were looking for. At around 1 a.m., 1:06 to be exact, there was a group of people leaving the house. It was that group of random dudes that Jake had invited. As they were leaving, one of them leaned down, scooped up all of my shoes in both of his arms, and walked out the door, laughing with his friends. They were all laughing, watching him do it. I looked over at Sam and he looked back at me. "Well, now we know who did it," he said. I nodded. "Yup." So, we ran upstairs to our other roommate's room, the one who knew Jake. We knocked on the door and I was like, "Yo, I need Jake's number." He gave it to us and I texted Jake, "Your friend stole my shoes. Please tell me who they are." Jake didn't have to be cool about it. He didn't have to help me at all, but he ended up giving me the names of everyone in that group, including the guy who took my shoes. He knew exactly who it was when I showed him the camera footage. His name was Arthur. Fucking Arthur. So, I got Arthur's name and number and decided to call him. I FaceTimed him and he picked up, not knowing it was me. He answered the phone and he was like, "Oh, Austin. Good seeing you last night, man. It was really nice to meet you." I was like, "I don't think we even met, bro." He was like, "Oh no, we did." I said, "Alright, well, I was probably too fucked up to remember. But what I'm not too fucked up to remember is checking my cameras and seeing your dumbass stealing my shoes. What do you have to say about that?" His face immediately changed. He looked like he was in shock. He was like, "Oh shit, man, I'm so embarrassed." I said, "Okay, so you admit it. You took my shoes?" He sighed. "Yeah, man, I did. My bad." I asked, "Why?" He stammered, I get too fucked up, man. I got too drunk and I thought it'd be funny to prank you." I was like, "Really? That's the only reason? You weren't trying to sell them or anything?" He quickly said, "What? No, that would be weird." I replied, "Oh yeah? Let me send you something." I texted him the eBay link and his face went pale. "Oh, you saw that too?" he said. I just nodded. "Bro, you're just getting caught left and right today." I said, "Alright, here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna put my shoes in the back of your car, drive back to my house right now, give me my shoes, and then leave. And I don't ever want to see you again. Sound good?" He nodded. Yeah, I got you." And he actually did it. He showed up, handed me a box with all my shoes in it, and then left. He tried apologizing about 30 times, and I appreciated it, but I just kept saying, "It's all good, man. It's all good." But in my head, I was thinking, this dude is never getting invited back here again. A fucking shoe thief, man. I thought moving to LA would be a fresh start, but it just brought a new set of problems. After that, we didn't throw another party for a few weeks. I was too paranoid about my shit getting stolen. When we eventually did throw another party, I locked all of my stuff up in my room. I learned that lesson real quick. So yeah, that's the moral of today's story. If you ever have a party and there are people you don't really know or trust, lock your valuables up in your room. Don't let people go in there, just to make sure nothing gets broken or stolen. But yeah, that's the story of how someone tried to sell my damn shoes on eBay. And they weren't even nice shoes. They were beat up Vans and slides, like no one wants my smelly ass shoes. The dude could have at least stolen something worth the trouble, like, I don't know, my YouTube play button or something. But no, he went for the beat up Vans. Anyway, I thought this was a funny, kind of crazy story. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your own story times in the comments down below. And if you're new here, make sure to subscribe. I'll see you guys all later. Peace. Yo, what's up guys? It's Austin here, or Luna, whichever you prefer. Today's story time is about someone in particular, someone who wasn't exactly the brightest in my school. And of course, it also involves me. I thought you guys would enjoy this one, so let's jump right into it. This story takes place at the beginning of 10th grade. It was during one of my late period classes, like the second to last one before we were out for the day. There was this girl I sat next to. Let's call her Cassidy. Now, Cassidy wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed. No offense if you're watching this, Cassidy, but I'm about to explain why you didn't exactly come off as the smartest person I knew. So, it's the start of the school year, and most of the first month had gone pretty smoothly. One day, Cassidy and I are in class, just doing our thing. We didn't talk much unless we needed help with homework or projects, but I knew from mutual friends that Cassidy loved to party. She was always at some kind of party. This particular day, class starts off pretty normal. Quiet, we're all just hanging out, kind of doing our schoolwork. Well, I was kind of doing my work, and she was too, but neither of us was really focused. Out of nowhere, I feel a tap on my shoulder. I look over, and Cassidy just shushes me, then reaches into her bag and pulls out this little orange pill bottle. I'm thinking, is that pills? I thought it might be a prescription for her or something. I mean, who would just start popping pills in the middle of class, right? But then she looks at me, smiles and goes, "You want some?" I'm like, "No, Cassidy, what are you doing?" And she just shushes me again. She takes the top off the pill bottle and there's no label on it. She pops one of the pills and I'm just sitting there like, what is this girl doing right now? I couldn't tell what kind of pills they were, but my best guess was Xanax because I knew from a mutual friend that she had taken them before. She was holding the bottle under the desk, so I couldn't get a good look at them, and like I said, there was no label. She puts the pills back in her bag, and in my head, I'm thinking, okay, that was really weird. I try to ignore it, thinking maybe they were actually prescribed to her, and she just tore the label off to look cool or something. I was a little worried about her, but she seemed like the type to joke around, so maybe they were just regular pills she took daily. We go on with the class, and I'm thinking that's the end of it, but nope. I get another tap on my shoulder, and I look over. She's got the pill bottle out again, whispering, "Shh." I'm like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "Do you want some?" At this point, I feel like I'm in some kind of ASMR video with all this whispering going on. I'm also worried we're gonna get caught because she keeps talking, even if it's in a whisper. And of course, as I'm thinking about getting caught, I hear the teacher go, "Hey, you two, quiet down over there at table 7. That was our table number. I look up, nod and say, "Yep." And Cassidy quickly puts the pills back in her bag. I'm thinking, alright, that's it. She's done now. But nope. As soon as the teacher looks away, Cassidy reaches back into her bag again. I look at her and whisper, "What are you doing?" She's like, "Sorry, I want some." Right then, I look back up and the teacher sees her. The teacher goes, "Cassidy, what are you reaching for?" Cassidy says, "Nothing, just need another pencil." The teacher goes, "You have 2 on your desk already. Why do you need another one?" Cassidy goes, "This one's not good. I want my mechanical one." I gotta admit, she was quick with the excuses. But the teacher wasn't buying it. She stands up and starts walking over, and I'm thinking, yep, she's about to get busted. The teacher walks over, looks in Cassidy's bag, and sees the orange pill bottle. She asks, "Cassidy, are these prescribed to you?" She grabs the bottle, and since the label was ripped off, there's no way to prove it. Cassidy goes, "Yeah, Mom, I'm prescribed them." The teacher goes, "No, these are unmarked. That's an unmarked pill bottle. Go to the office right now and tell them what I just found. And if you don't tell them the truth, I'll call up and tell them myself." Cassidy tries to argue, No, it's not what you think." But the teacher isn't having it. She's like, "Nope, office, now. Austin, you too." I'm like, wait, why me?" She goes, "Clearly, you two were both involved in this." I'm like, No, I wasn't involved at all. And the whole class is giggling at this point, and I'm just sitting there like, I didn't do anything. But the teacher goes, "I heard you two whispering. I think you were both involved." I'm like, "Please explain how you have any proof that I was involved in her having pills in her backpack." And she goes, "I don't know. Maybe you sold them to her." At that point, I'm just like, you know what? Screw this. I got up and walked out. Not the best move, but I was pissed, and I was acting on the impulse. I left school and called my mom like, "Hey, you're gonna get a call from the office saying I left." I got accused of something I didn't do, so I walked out. She's like, "What did they accuse you of?" I tell her, "The teacher thinks I sold pills to a girl in my class." My mom's like, "Alright, that's bullshit." Luckily, my mom understood the situation and I didn't get in much trouble. I ended up with 1 lunch detention where I had to sit with the teacher during lunch, which wasn't exactly fun, but it could have been worse. Cassidy, on the other hand, got suspended for 2 days, rightfully so. Moral of the story, don't be like Cassidy. Definitely don't do what she did. And also, don't do what I did. Walking out of school in a fit of anger isn't the best choice. But hey, I thought this was a funny, crazy little story time, and luckily I didn't end up getting arrested or anything. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this story time. If you did, please leave a like on the video, I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your story times in the comments, and if you're new here, subscribe. I'll see you all later. Peace. Hey, what's good guys? It's Austin here, or Luna, whatever you prefer. So, today's story time is a pretty ridiculous one, but before we get into that, just a quick heads up. My new merch dropped today. Honestly, this is probably my favorite drop yet. I know, I say that every time, but seriously, it just keeps getting better. I'll put some of it up on the screen. We've got a new shirt and hoodie that I think you'll love. And as a little bonus, I'm calling the first 100 people who buy each item. So, the first 100 who get the shirt and the first 100 who get the hoodie, you're getting a phone call from me. That's 200 calls total. Also, if you grab anything from the store, doesn't matter what it is, make sure you screenshot your confirmation page and tweet it at me or tag me on Instagram so I can like it. I'm also going to be following back and DMing as many people as I can, so I'm really looking forward to talking to you guys. But if you're not into it, that's totally cool too. No pressure at all, just putting it out there for those who are interested. Alright, enough plugging, let's get into this crazy story time. So, this one happened when I was 18 years old. I was single at the time, not really talking to anyone, just living my life, making videos, and hanging out with friends. Simple stuff. One day, I get a friend request on Facebook. Back then, I still use Facebook to keep in touch with family and old friends. I don't really use it much anymore, but at the time, it was still a thing. Anyway, I get this friend request from this girl who went to my school. I recognize her, so I'm like, alright, cool. And I add her. Not even 10 minutes later, she sends me a message. Hey, oh my god, I remember you from school. You were so cute. I miss you. We should hang out. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, that's a little weird. Because let me tell you, I never hung out with this girl. Not once. In high school, she never even noticed me. We had mutual friends, so we'd exchanged maybe 5 words total over the years. But that was it. We were not friends, not even close. So I found it kind of strange that she was saying she missed me. But I figured, whatever, she's just being nice, right? So I reply and say, thanks, how have you been? And she's like, great, we should get to know each other more. I didn't get to know you in high school, but we should change that. I'm like, alright, sure, here's my number. I mean, she seemed nice enough, and I thought it might be cool to get to know her as a friend. So I give her my number, and she texts me. I add her to my contacts, reply, hey, what's up? And then she just leaves me on read, doesn't respond for the rest of the day. Later that night, she finally texts back, hey, can you add me on Snapchat? I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. So I add her on Snap and she immediately sends me a message. I swipe on it and I'm not even kidding, it just says, send dick. And I'm just sitting there like, huh? Like what the hell? This was literally one of the first things she said to me since adding me. So I reply, what? And she's like, please? I respond, no. And she's like, why not? With a sad face emoji. I'm like, because I don't know you like that. She replies, oh, so you'll have to get to know me. And I'm like, no, I'm just saying I don't know you like that. Sorry, but no. She goes, oh, okay, so what's up? And at this point, I'm thinking, alright, this got way too awkward way too fast. I decide I'm not gonna reply for the rest of the night. I just leave her message unopened and jump on Xbox instead. Figured I'd deal with it when she's sober, assuming she's just drunk and being ridiculous. The next morning, I wake up to a text from an old friend from school. I hadn't talked to him in about a year, but he was really good friends with this girl. His message says, yo man, call me when you see this. And I'm like, well that's strange. So, I call him to see what's up. He picks up and he's like, yo, what's up bro? I'm like, not much, why'd you want me to call? He's like, first off, how you been? I tell him I've been good and we catch up for a bit. Then he says, listen, I just wanted to let you know, even though we don't talk much, you're my boy and I gotta look out for you. That girl that added you the other day, do not trust her. I'm like, wait, her? And he's like, yeah, her. Dude, she was at my house the other day for a party and she said she's gonna try to get with you because of your status. And get this, she said if it didn't work out, she was gonna sell your nudes to YouTube drama channels for money. I'm just sitting there in disbelief like, you've got to be kidding me. He's like, no dude, I'm serious. She was a little drunk, but it seemed pretty honest to me. I'm like, bro, I'm not even famous. Why would she say that? He's like, listen man, you're from a small town, you're doing well for yourself, and people see that and want to take advantage. Just be careful. I'm like, holy shit, thank you so much man, you just saved me. He's like, no problem bro. After I heard her say that, I couldn't even look at her the same way. Just be safe, alright? I'm like, For sure, man, you're a real one. He asks if she messaged me recently, and I tell him about the snap she sent asking for a dick pic. He's like, oh no, tell me you didn't send anything. I'm like, hell no, dude. He's like, Vanga, thank God, man. Alright, take care. Let's hang soon. And we hang up. Immediately, I open her snap from the night before. It's just a random, hey, I'm just hanging out at home type message. So I reply, hey, what's up? And she's like, hey, sorry about last night. I was a little drunk. I'm like, no problem. Just a question though. Are you trying to date me for clout or like sell my nudes to YouTube drama channels? Because first off, no one's buying my nudes. And second, I'm not famous. So good luck with that. She replies, oh my God, no, I was just joking. I said that at a party to be funny. I'm like, I don't know. One of your really good friends told me you seemed pretty serious. She's like, who? I'm like, I'm not ratting him out, just saying you didn't seem like you were joking. And then she snaps, drops the whole nice act and goes, you know what? Fuck it. He was telling the truth, I was gonna sell those pics and I was gonna manipulate you and I was gonna enjoy every second of it. At this point, I'm thinking, holy shit, this girl is a psychopath. Like, who says something like that? So I reply, you're a psychopath. She's like, you would have deserved it. And then she blocks me. And I'm just sitting there imagining what would have happened if I actually fell for that. Like, can you imagine some random OnlyFans or leaked pics on some YouTube drama channel? Who even wants that? No one's trying to see my shit. Anyway, moral of the story, some people are just straight up evil. She was one of them. Be careful who you trust because some people will try to manipulate you for their own gain. I still can't believe she actually admitted all that. It's insane. But yeah, that's the story. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like and feel free to share your own stories in the comments. And if you're new, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for listening and I'll catch you all later. Peace. Yo, what's up guys? It's Austin here, or Luna, whatever you want to call me. Today's story time is one I've been wanting to tell for a while now. But before we jump into it, I just want to say, the new merch is still out. I think it's pretty fire. If you like any of it, go check it out. Cop it, I'd really appreciate it. If not, that's totally cool too. Alright, let's get into the story. This one is about my old babysitter. If you've been following my channel for a while, you might remember some of the babysitter story times I've done in the past. Funny enough, after I posted one of those videos, my old babysitter actually reached out to me. She was like, OMG, I miss you, let's hang out. And we ended up becoming friends again. So me, her, and another friend of mine decided to meet up at this restaurant. We were hanging out and they had a bar there, so my old babysitter decides to go grab some drinks. And let's just say, she got tipsy pretty quick. Actually, scratch that, she got drunk. She was at the bar, calling us over, yelling, come here, come here. So we go over and we're just sitting there, hanging out with her. We weren't drinking, just keeping her company. Eventually, she decided to stop drinking because she didn't want to get too drunk to walk. We all decided to leave because we were bored of the restaurant. My friend was driving, he hadn't had anything to drink, neither did I. So we get in the car and start driving around, listening to music. It was nighttime, so there were a lot of people out, heading to bars and restaurants. And my babysitter, who's in the back seat, sticks her head out of the window and starts yelling at random people. Just stuff like, I love you, or hey, what's up? You know, nothing mean, just random stuff. But it was a bit obnoxious, and I was worried we'd get pulled over. I mean, whenever I'm walking down the street and someone honks or yells at me, it's the worst feeling in the world. So, I tell her to chill out because there are cops around and we don't want to draw any attention. She agrees and stops yelling. It's kind of funny though. Back in the day, she used to babysit me and now here I am trying to keep her out of trouble like the roles have reversed. But no matter how hard we tried to be the responsible ones, it didn't work out that way. So, my friend decides he's thirsty and wants to get a drink. We pull into a gas station, he parks, and he runs inside to grab something. He tells us to behave while he's gone, and I turn the music up, just chilling, singing along. Everything's going fine until I see a police car pull into the lot. The cop parks right next to us, and we make eye contact. I wave, he waves back, and he walks into the store. He seemed like a nice guy, so I'm thinking, alright, no big deal. But then my babysitter's like, I'm hot, I need to get out and walk around. I'm like, no, just stay in the car. My friend will be back in 2 minutes. We'll turn on the AC. She's like, no, I need to stretch my legs. And I'm thinking, this is a bad idea. But she starts unlocking the door and getting out. She's really drunk, and there's such a thing as public intoxication. If you're acting a fool in public while drunk, you can get arrested. In my head, I'm just praying, please don't cause a scene. The second she gets out, she yells, I feel amazing. I'm like, oh no. I tell her, hey, get back in the car. She's like, no, fuck you. I'm like, alright. I'm sorry, trying to keep her calm. But right after that, the cop comes out of the store and sees her. He's like, how you doing? She's like, good. He's like, you having a good night? She's like, yeah, I'm having a great night. And I'm just sitting there like, please, please be nice. Thankfully, the cop was a cool guy. He chuckles and says, looks like you're a little tipsy tonight, huh? I'm like, not me. I haven't had anything to drink. He nods. Oh, just her then? She's like, uh-huh. He's like, all right, well, just be safe tonight, okay? And I'm thinking, great, we're in the clear. But then she says something I did not expect. Fuck the police. I immediately put my hands over my face like, oh no. In my head, I'm just thinking, why? Why would you say that? I wanted to apologize to the officer, tell him she's drunk and doesn't know what she's saying, but before I could say anything, the cop flips. He goes from good cop to bad cop real quick. He's like, excuse me? What did you just say? She's like, nothing. He's like, no, say it again. And then she turns around and tries to run away from him. She slips on some pebbles and falls. The cop runs over, helps her up, and then cuffs her. He puts her in the back of his car, and I'm just sitting there like, oh no. Right at that moment, my friend comes out of the gas station, sipping on a Fanta, and he's like, what the hell's going on? The cop tells him, your friend is under arrest. My friend looks at me, Austin, what happened? I'm like, she's just too drunk. The cop nods, yep, exactly. Honestly, if she hadn't tried to run, she probably would have been fine, but the minute she ran and fell, it was over. The cop tells us, alright, you guys have a good one. She'll probably be out by tomorrow. And he drives off. My friend and I are left there with so many questions, like, when is she getting out? How long are they gonna keep her? But the cop left so quick we didn't even have time to ask. We get back in the car and drive to my friend's house. We're just sitting there for hours wondering what's gonna happen. We ask his parents and they're like, she'll probably be out by morning but she'll have to pay a fine. So, we go to sleep and the next morning I wake up to a new group chat from her. It's me and my friend and she just says, I'm out, beaches. I started laughing so hard, I ran upstairs to show my friend, woke him up with it and he's like, no way. She ended up getting out that morning, just like his parents said. She had to pay a fine, but she was okay. I didn't ask her how much it was, but she was out and that's what mattered. Still, it could have gone a lot worse depending on the situation. Moral of the story? Don't ever do what she did. Ever. I wasn't even sure if I should tell this story because I didn't want to hurt her feelings, but she told me it was cool. So, old babysitter, if you're watching this, I hope you never get arrested again. It's always fun hanging out with you, and my subscribers love hearing about you. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this story time. Before I end the video, one last plug. My Instagram is super close to 200k. If you guys could drop me a follow, I'd really appreciate it. No pressure though, I'll leave the link in the description. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this story time. If you did, leave a like, share your story times in the comments, and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all later. Peace. Yo, what's up guys? It's Austin here. Or Luna, whatever you prefer. Today's story time takes place a few years ago, back in 2017. You know, the good times before COVID and all the other craziness that came with 2020. So, yeah, back in the better days, I was at the mall with a couple of friends and this whole thing started with me getting recognized. So, we're at the mall and I get recognized by this group of 3 people. 2 of them looked like your typical high school dudes, probably around 17 or 18, so close to my age at the time. Then there was a girl with them who was a lot quieter. She had more of that Hot Topic vibe, kind of goth or emo. No judgment, honestly, I kind of dress like that myself sometimes. It was just interesting because the 2 guys were giving off jock vibes and she was totally different. I like seeing that mix of styles. Usually I see friend groups that all look the same, but they were pretty unique. Anyway, she was really quiet. The only thing she said was that she liked my videos, so I said thank you and we all took a group photo. I talked to the 2 dudes for about 5 minutes, but she didn't say much else. After a bit, I said goodbye because my friend and I had stuff to do, and we left the mall. My friend had to stop by his parents' place to drop off some money, so we went there first, and then we headed back to my house. We're chilling in my room, I'm on my phone, scrolling through Twitter, and my friend is playing Xbox. All of a sudden, he says, yo, aren't those the kids from earlier? I look out the window of my house. This was my old house, by the way, I don't live there anymore, and I see a group of people on the sidewalk right outside. Not all of them looked familiar, but one of them definitely did. It was that same emo girl from earlier. I'm like, yo, that's the same girl from the mall. The rest of them weren't the same people, but she was. My friend asks if I'm gonna say something and I'm like, nah, maybe they're just walking by. I doubt they even know I live here. My address wasn't public or anything, so I figured it was just a coincidence. They ended up walking away down the street, but the weird thing was, she kind of stopped in front of my house for a second. She wasn't looking directly at my house, so I just tried to be optimistic and assumed it was nothing. But sadly, it wasn't just a coincidence. The next morning, my friend had already gone home, and I wake up, stretch, and the first thing I do is open my window to get some fresh air. Now, I'm standing there in just my boxers, no shirt, no pants, and I see that same group of people outside my house. This time, the emo girl is standing right in front of my house with her phone out, taking a photo of it. And I'm in the window, so I quickly jump out of the way because I'm not trying to be in her photo half naked. I get dressed as fast as I can and run outside. She sees me and she looks scared, putting her phone away immediately. I'm like, yo, what are you doing? She's all nervous, like, oh, nothing. We were just passing through and I realized this is where you live. I wanted to show my friend. I'm like, please don't show anyone my house. I don't care how trustworthy they are. Don't send photos of my private residence. She's like, oh yeah, I understand. She was a lot more talkative this time, way less shy. I tell her, look, I'm not mad, but please leave. I don't know how you got my address, but please just go. She tries to say she didn't get my address, but I'm like, yeah, you just happened to be passing through and knew exactly which house was mine. She eventually admits, okay, yeah, I think my friend gave it to me. I'm sorry. I'm like, no need to lie, just please don't come back. She apologizes again, and then she and her friends leave. She told me she deleted the photo, and I thought everything was cool. I wasn't angry or anything, just kind of firm about it. I thought that was the end of it. But then, a week later, I'm hanging out with two friends in my room. This time, it's around 9 p.m., and it's pretty much dark outside. I see a flashlight shining outside my window, coming from the sidewalk. I open the window, and it's her, again, shining her flashlight up at my window. So, I run outside, and I'm like, yo, what are you doing? She's like, I just wanted to see how you were doing. I was passing through. I have never felt so stalked in my life. I've dealt with a few stalkerish people before, but this, shining a flashlight in my window at night just to say hello, this was a new level of creepy, and this time, she was alone. I didn't know if she had something in her pocket, like, what if she was gonna try to shank me or something? I had no idea what she was thinking. While I'm talking to her, my friends come out too. They're like, everything okay? I tell them, yeah, we're good. She's like, yeah, I just wanted to say hello. I'm like, why are you passing through my neighborhood specifically? Do you even live around here? She says she lives about a mile away. I'm like, so why are you here? She's like, I don't know, I just like the area. It's really nice. I tell her, thank you, I like it too, but please don't come here without an invite. It's really not okay. She's like, okay, and leaves again. At this point, I'm genuinely scared. I hope that's the end of it, but then another week goes by. I'm hanging out with my friend, the same one from the beginning at the mall, and it's about 9 or 10 at night. I see a flashlight outside my window again. I open the blinds and there she is, again. My friend is like, nah man, I'm handling this. This has gone on too long. He runs out there with me and I let him do the talking. He's like, what are you doing here? She says, I was just passing by, wanted to say hello again. He's like, look, you seem nice, but you need to leave Austin alone. If you come back again, we'll have to file a restraining order. Now, I didn't really plan on doing that, but it seemed to get the point across. She's like, oh, I'm sorry, I won't come back. She apologizes again, waves and walks away. Honestly, I felt a little bad because her reaction seemed genuine. She didn't seem like a bad person, just someone who maybe didn't pick up on social cues very well, but still, in any situation, showing up at someone's house uninvited, especially at night, is not okay. I think my friend did what he thought was right to keep me safe, and I appreciate that. Thankfully, she never came back after that. I'm not sure where she is now, but I hope she's doing well. I've moved since then, so hopefully, she's not trying to find my new address or still going to my old one. Anyway, I thought you guys would find this story interesting. Moral of the story, don't do what she did. It's really not polite and it's pretty creepy. Hope you enjoyed this story time. If you did, leave a like, share your story times in the comments, and if you're new, subscribe. I'll catch you later. Peace. Yo, what's up guys? It's Austin here, or Luna. So, today's story time is about someone specific. Let's just call them Morgan. Morgan was a good friend of mine for a long time. I've known him since I was 14. He was there since the beginning. He was my friend before I even created this YouTube channel. We watched this channel go from 100 subs to 1 million together. Sadly, we didn't watch it hit 2 million together. He had to see that alone because Morgan and I are no longer friends, and today's story time is about how that fell apart. So, let's flashback. I was 18 years old, living in LA, and making videos every day. I decided to fly out one of my best friends, Morgan, who I'd known since I was 14, because I wanted to show him what I was doing out in LA. I wanted to show him my apartment, introduce him to my friends that I'd met out there, and just have a good time hanging out with my friend. I fly him out, and the first few days of him being there were totally fine. We were having a dope time. Then, on the second to last day before he was supposed to go back home, I had to leave the apartment to grab some food. I had ordered takeout, and I lived just down the street from the place. So I asked Morgan, "Yo bro, I'm going down the street to pick up food. Do you want anything?" He was like, "Yeah man, that'd be dope." And he told me what he wanted, so I wrote it down and went to pick it up while he stayed at my apartment. Now, I'd known this dude since I was 14. I thought I could trust him, thought nothing bad would happen. I left my apartment, went down the street and waited at the restaurant for a while. I had to wait because I ordered extra food for Morgan and they were still making it. So, I'm just sitting there, on my phone, scrolling through Twitter, just passing time. I even texted Morgan like, "Yo man, they're taking a minute, I'll be back soon." And he replied, "All good bro." But while I was out of the apartment, Morgan must have gone into my bedroom and searched my entire room. He found this tiny piece of paper I kept under my bed that had my Twitter password and my YouTube password on it. He must have taken a photo of it with his phone or written it down somewhere. So eventually the food is ready and I grab it and head back to my apartment. Me and Morgan hang out the rest of the day and then I take him to a party that one of my friends was throwing. It was a really fun party and then the next day, Morgan went home. After he left, I remember thinking, man, it was so cool having him here. That's one of my best friends. I'm so glad he got to come to LA and hang out with me. Fast forward 2 days after Morgan got home, I wake up, and that morning I go to check Twitter, and I realize I'm signed out. I go to sign in, and it says my password is wrong. I'm super confused, like, what the hell? This is the password I have written down. I double check, grab the paper from under my bed, and type it in again. Still wrong. So, I go to change it and I realize my email on Twitter has been changed to a completely different one. At this point I realize, oh shti, I got hacked. I was completely locked out of my Twitter. Then I start to panic and wonder if my YouTube is hacked too. I check my YouTube and luckily it wasn't hacked because I had changed my YouTube password just a couple of days before and I hadn't written that new password on the piece of paper yet. But I felt really stupid because a few days before all this, when I changed my YouTube password, I also took off two-step verification from all my accounts. Stupid move. Don't do that. I only did it because I was planning to change my phone number soon since I was getting random phone calls and I figured my number had been leaked. So, I took off two-step verification to make it easier to update my accounts with my new number later. I shouldn't have done that days before actually changing my number. I left myself vulnerable to getting hacked. Anyway, it was too late. I was already hacked. My Twitter was gone and I had no idea what would happen. Luckily, there weren't any tweets on it yet, but I was expecting the worst. I started freaking out, wondering who could have done this and why. So, I reached out to someone I knew who worked at Twitter, and thankfully, they helped me get back into my account, which was super nice of them. I had to use a new email because my original email was also hacked. It had the same password as my Twitter. Lesson number 2, don't use the same password for different accounts. I was being stupid. Anyway, I got my stuff back, secured everything, but I was still left wondering who did it. I thought maybe it was some random person on the internet. But then I started considering the possibility that it could have been someone close to me. So I spent a couple of days trying to get back into my hacked email, and when I finally did, I checked the last IP that had signed in. It was from my hometown. That meant it had to be someone who lived near me in my hometown, someone who somehow got my password. The only person I could think of was Morgan. I called Morgan and said, "Yo dude, I hate to be that guy, and I'm not trying to accuse you, but I checked my email after it got hacked, and the last logged IP was from my hometown. I don't know who else to ask because I'm not close with many people from back home, and you're the only one who might know something." He goes, "Nah bro, I don't know anything about that." I was like, "All good, I figured you didn't. Just wanted to check." He said, "No problem, hope you find out who did it, that's fucked up." I agreed and we hung up. For the next few days, I pretty much gave up on trying to figure it out. I got all my stuff back and I had no other way of finding out who did it unless they confessed. So I just moved on and stopped thinking about it. About a week later, I get a text from Morgan saying, "Bro, can you call me real quick?" I reply, "Yeah, for sure," and call him. He picks up and he sounds like he's on the verge of tears. I'm like, "What's up, dude?" He says, "Man, I feel like such a duck right now. This is so embarrassing." I ask, "What's going on?" He goes, "It was me. I found your password under your bed, signed into your Twitter, and locked you out." I don't know what I was thinking. I was just trying to get some followers. I was like, "Wait, it was you. What do you mean you wanted followers?" He says, "I thought if I got on your Twitter and shouted out my account, I could get some followers. I know it was so fucked up. I'm so sorry. I know you probably never want to be friends again, but I just wanted to say sorry." I was stunned. I said, "Alright, hold on, I'll call you back," and hung up because I needed a moment to gather my thoughts. I was really mad, but at the same time he owned up to it, which was better than hiding it and pretending nothing happened. I respected that part of it, but I was still angry and not okay with what he did. It was really messed up. So, I called him back about 15 minutes later and said, "Yo dude, just based on what happened, I can't trust you anymore. I'm not gonna say I hate you or anything, but I don't think we can be close friends anymore." He said, "I totally understand, man. It'll never happen again. I'm so sorry I fucked this up." I said, "It's all good. Have a good night." And we hung up. And that was pretty much it. From that point on, Morgan and I weren't really friends anymore. I'm not gonna say I hate the guy, and if I saw him in public, I'm not gonna start a fight or anything, but I definitely won't be getting close to him again and risk losing everything. The moral of the story is, keep important things in a safe place and don't leave them where anyone could find them. Even though that paper was under my bed, it was still somewhere anyone could look if I wasn't around. I hope you guys enjoyed this story time, even if it was a bit of a sad one. If you did, please leave a like on the video, I would really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your story times in the comments down below and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you later. Peace. Yo, what's good everybody? It's Austin here, or Luna. Today's video is honestly one of the weirdest and grossest things I've ever had to talk about. I'm not even sure how I'm going to get through this without getting demonetized, so I'm going to have to censor some of the stuff I describe. But yeah, let's jump into it. Today's story time is about the strangest thing I have ever witnessed on someone's phone. So, I hope you enjoy it, and let's get into it. This story takes place back in the summer of 2015. It was a good summer, school was out, I was having fun, grinding out YouTube videos, streaming, and just hanging out with my friends. On this particular day, I had plans to spend the night at my friend Kyle's house. I packed my bag, got everything ready, and my mom dropped me off at Kyle's around 6 or 7 p.m. Now, Kyle is someone I've known since I was about 8 years old, and we're still friends to this day. He's a good dude, but sometimes he's a bit too nice. When I got to his house, he told me he had invited someone else over, this kid from our class named Justin. Now, I wasn't thrilled to hear this because, honestly, Justin gave off some weird vibes. Let me explain. Justin was in my science class and he wasn't just the quiet kind of weird kid. He said some seriously disturbing stuff. For example, one time, he just randomly asked me if I'd ever watched videos of people getting murdered. It wasn't even part of a conversation, he just asked out of nowhere. I remember being like, what? I ended up answering him, saying, "Yeah, I've unfortunately seen some things online." And he got excited and asked, "What was the worst one? Describe it." Then he asked for a link to it. That was when I decided this kid was a massive red flag. So when Kyle told me Justin was coming over, I was disappointed and a little worried. I asked him why he invited Justin, and he said he thought Justin was actually kind of funny, and he responded to a Facebook post Kyle made about the sleepover. I tried to tell him that Justin was a walking red flag, but it was too late. Justin was already on his way. About 10 minutes later, Justin showed up with his mom. He came in, greeted everyone, and for the first half hour, it seemed okay. Nothing too weird. We were playing video games, hanging out, and honestly, I thought maybe I was wrong about Justin. Maybe I was being too judgmental. Then, right as I was starting to think that, Justin suddenly says, "Yo guys, how big are y'all?" We all just kind of looked at him, confused, and I asked, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You know, like, down there. How big are you?" I said, "Justin, are you seriously asking me how big my... you know what is?" And he goes, "Yeah, I just want to know." Kyle quickly shut that down saying, "Dude, I'm not telling you that." But Justin kept pushing, saying it was just locker room talk. It was super awkward and I just tried to change the subject. Everyone laughed nervously and we moved on. The next few hours were normal again. Nothing too weird from Justin, so I thought maybe that was just a one-off awkward moment. But later that night, around midnight or 1 a.m, everyone was getting tired. We decided to head down to the basement to sleep. Kyle had a nice finished basement and we all set up our sleeping bags there. Justin was the first one to fall asleep, and after he did, Kyle whispered to us, "Yo, should we go through his phone?" Now, I was hesitant. I didn't really want to see what might be on Justin's phone, but Kyle was already sneaking over to grab it. Justin had left his phone on the couch and Kyle grabbed it and brought it back to us. He opened it up, no passcode or anything, which should have been a red flag given what we were about to find. Kyle opened the Photos app, and at first it was just a bunch of selfies. Normal stuff, honestly. I started feeling guilty about snooping. I was about to tell Kyle to put it back, but then he scrolled a bit further. And that's when we found them. The photos we wish we'd never seen. Let's just say there were a lot of graphic adult images, but the worst part? Some of them involved animals. I can't even describe it further. It was that messed up. We all looked at each other, horrified, and Kyle immediately locked the phone and put it back where he found it. We just sat there in silence for a while, not knowing what to say. Eventually, we all managed to fall asleep, but the next morning, things were awkward. Nobody said anything about what we saw, but we all knew. Justin left later that day, and we just tried to move on. But the story doesn't end there. A couple of days later, I was in my room playing Xbox, trying to push what happened out of my mind when I got a call from Kyle. He sounded nervous. He said, "Yo, I did something today, and I'm not sure if it was the right thing." I asked him what he meant, and he said, "I called Justin's mom and told her what we found on his phone." I was stunned. "You did what?" He explained that he couldn't get those images out of his head, and he felt like he had to tell someone. He said he called her up, explained what we found, and she ended up checking Justin's phone herself. Kyle told me she said she was putting him into therapy. I honestly think Kyle did the right thing. It was messed up, and maybe getting help was exactly what Justin needed. Kyle also told me that Justin's mom promised not to tell Justin how she found out, so at least Justin wouldn't know we went through his phone. Still, I was shocked that Kyle actually did it, but honestly, it felt like the right move. Maybe it even prevented something worse from happening down the road. So yeah, that's the story of the weirdest sleepover I've ever had. Moral of the story? Don't be like Justin, and maybe don't go snooping through people's phones, but if you do and you find something that disturbing, it might be worth letting someone know. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this story time. If you did, please leave a like, leave your story times in the comments, and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you guys all later. Peace. Yo, what's up guys? It's Austin here, or Luna, whatever you want to call me. First off, happy Memorial Day. I hope you're having a great day so far, and if Memorial Day is already over by the time you're watching this, I hope you had a good one. Hope you all are staying safe out there. But anyway, let's jump into today's story time, which, fittingly enough, is about last Memorial Day. So, this story takes place late at night after Memorial Day. It was technically the next day, around 2 in the morning. I get a text from my friend saying, "Yo, we got some fireworks, and we're gonna head up to the roof of this abandoned building to set them off. You down?" And obviously I was like, "Of course I'm down. That sounds awesome." Now, let me just put a disclaimer out there. Never do this. Sneaking into abandoned buildings is dangerous for so many reasons. Mold, asbestos, possibly running into angry homeless folks, and then lighting off fireworks on a roof? Yeah, not exactly a bright idea, so don't try this. Anyway, my friend picks me up and we head back to his house where 3 other friends were waiting. We split into 2 cars, I rode with the friend that picked me up, and we drove about 45 minutes to get there. Not too bad of a drive, and when we got there, I was kinda shocked at how tall this place was. 16 stories up. We get inside pretty easily, and my friend has all the fireworks in his backpack. We meet up at the stairs and start making our way up, and let me tell you, there were a lot of stairs. We finally make it to the top, and that's when things start to take a turn for the worse. Now, I get dizzy sometimes, like random dizzy spells for no reason. Sometimes it's from standing up too fast or just seeing something that freaks me out. And let me tell you, being 16 stories above the ground on an abandoned building's roof is definitely the kind of thing that freaks me out. Not a good combo. But my dumbass decides it'd be a good idea to stand on the edge of this building for an Instagram photo. So I go, "Yo bro, take a photo of me." And I toss my phone to my friend. He's like, "What are you gonna do?" And I'm like, "I'm gonna stand on the edge, put my arms out, and just look epic." He's like, "Dude, that's a terrible idea." And I'm like, "Nah man, I got this." Now, let me remind you, I have a fear of heights and I get dizzy. Put those together, and yeah, this was a really bad idea. But I get up on the ledge and immediately I slip on these tiny rocks that are up there. The ledge is all worn out with pebbles and gravel and I start losing my balance. I'm leaning as far back as I can to try and stay up, but I'm too far forward. I look down and I just see the street lights and everything below me, and before I can even process what's happening, I feel my friend grab my arm and yank me back onto the roof. I fall back, my feet hit the ledge, and my legs just smash into the building. I was already starting to fall, and if my friend hadn't grabbed me when he did, I would have been done. I remember sitting there, just almost blacking out, freaking out, having a full-on panic attack. All my friends were like, "Yo, what just happened?" And I'm just sitting there, completely tweaked out, trying to calm down. That experience alone made me swear I'd never get on a roof again. And it wasn't even the first time something like this happened. I've told a story before about almost falling out of a window in an abandoned building. My friend pulled me in that time too, and it wasn't even the same friend. Shout out to my friends for saving my life twice now. Anyway, after that, I laid down on the roof and stayed as far away from the edge as possible. I just watched my friend set off the fireworks. Once we were done, we made our way back down the stairs to the bottom floor. And surprise, we walk out to the car and there's a police car parked right behind us with its lights on. The cop was just waiting for us. He probably saw the fireworks and our flashlights, but couldn't get into the building himself because of all the asbestos and stuff. So, we walk out thinking we're about to get arrested. The cop looks at us and goes, Guys, look, I know it's Memorial Day and you want to have fun, but this building is dangerous. Please don't go back in there ever again. We're like, okay, officer. He's like, all right, have a good one. Be safe and no more fireworks. We're like, you too. And he just gets in his car and leaves. Honestly, that was the best way the night could have ended. I was really not trying to have a near-death experience and then get arrested. So yeah, in the end, we were all okay, and I didn't fall off the building. Obviously, I'm here telling you this story. But the moral of the story is, don't trespass into abandoned buildings, don't mess around on rooftops, and definitely don't do anything I did in this story. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this story time. If you did, leave a like, drop your own story times in the comments, and if you're new here, make sure to subscribe. I'll see you all later. Peace. Alright, so today's story time is just an all-around ridiculous one, so let's jump right into it. Honestly, there's just no other way to start this. This story takes place way back when I was a little kid, preschool days. Picture baby Luna in preschool, hanging out with all his preschool friends, with a teacher we'll call Mrs. Anderson. Mrs. Anderson was awesome. From what I remember, she was super nice. She always used to tell me I was a stylish kid, which, fair enough. I mean, I thought I was rocking it, rolling into preschool wearing suede suits and tuxedos. Okay, maybe I wasn't the flyest one there, but I definitely thought I was. Looking back now, I probably looked like a little Pee Wee Herman, but hey, Mrs. Anderson thought I looked good, and that's all that mattered. Anyway, fast forward to my high school days. This story takes place in 10th grade. I had a friend we'll call Nicole. Nicole's mom worked at a preschool, and she used to mention her mom's job now and then. One day she tells me, yeah, my mom's working today. I ask, oh, where does she work? She says, a preschool. So I ask which one, and it turns out it was my old preschool. I'm like, wait, what's her last name? She tells me Anderson, and I'm just like, no way, that's my old preschool teacher. Small world, right? Fast forward a couple of months, and Nicole decides to throw a party at her mom's house. Her mom was staying at her boyfriend's place that night, so Nicole figured she'd have the house to herself. This wasn't just a small gathering though, it was a full-blown party with like 50 to 60 people crammed into this pretty small house. It was packed. Now, I remember thinking, man, Mrs. Anderson would not like this if she came home and saw all these people in her living room drinking and smoking. But then I thought, nah, she was so nice to me in preschool, she'd probably be cool about it. But then I thought again, wait, that was when I was a little kid. Adults tend to be nicer to preschoolers than to a bunch of teenagers trashing their house. Anyway, about an hour into the party, even more people started showing up. People were in the backyard, being loud, playing music. The whole vibe was getting out of control. And of course, the neighbors heard all of this and called Nicole's mom, Mrs. Anderson, to let her know that there was a party going on at her house. Mrs. Anderson races back from her boyfriend's place, and when she walks in, she's livid. She starts screaming, "Who are you kids? Get the hell out of my house. You imbeciles, you delinquents, get out." And I'm standing there like, yo, this is not the Mrs. Anderson I remember. This was the same lady who used to call me spiffy and tell me I looked handsome, and now she's calling us imbeciles and delinquents. Not everyone listened to her though. I went out on the porch to wait for my friend to come pick me up because I wasn't about to disrespect my old preschool teacher. A few others came out onto the porch with me, but most people inside weren't leaving. Mrs. Anderson was yelling and screaming insults, and it just wasn't working. 90% of the people there were ignoring her. And then, things took a turn for the absolute worst. I hear someone inside scream, "Oh my god, Dip! She has a knife!" I'm like, wait, what? I see people flooding out the front and side doors, running around from the backyard. I peek inside, and there she is, in the kitchen, waving a knife in the air and yelling, "Everybody get out of my house now!" Nicole is screaming at her, "Mom, stop! They're leaving!" And that's when I decided I was done. I shut the door and bolted off the property. I wasn't going to stand anywhere near her yard while she was waving a kitchen knife around. I waited across the street on the sidewalk until my friend came to pick me up. When he got there, I told him the whole story, and he's like, "What the hell? That was your old preschool teacher?" I'm like, "Yeah, man. All I can picture is her back in my preschool days, wearing her name tag, showing us how to finger paint. And now I've got this image of her holding a knife. It's insane." He goes, "Well, I'm glad you left. I wouldn't want your cause of death to be a preschool teacher." I was like, "Yeah, thanks, me too." We went back to my house, hung out for a bit, and the rest of the night was pretty chill. Later, I was texting Nicole, and she apologized for everything. She said, "My mom would never actually hurt anyone. She was just trying to scare people into leaving." I was like, "Yeah, but that's probably not the best way to handle it, especially when you're a teacher." She agreed, saying she didn't know what got into her mom, but everyone was safe, and her mom would never hurt anyone. So yeah, moral of the story, maybe don't throw a massive party at your parents' house if you know they're capable of getting really angry, and be careful about the parties you go to, because you never know when an angry preschool teacher might show up with a knife. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this story time. If you did, please leave a like, share your story times in the comments, and if you're new here, make sure to subscribe. I'll catch you all later. Peace. Alright, so it's been a while since I've told a story time like this one. I hope you all enjoy it, and let's just jump right in. This story takes place when I was in 9th grade. Life was pretty chill at that time, not too much crazy stuff happening. I was going to school, making videos as often as I could, and things were just kinda normal. But of course, something had to come along and mess it all up. One day, I'm on Xbox with 4 friends of mine, just minding my own business. We're playing Modern Warfare 2 together, having a blast. We were in a private match doing a 5v5 sniper lobby with some kids we had invited from previous games. Everything's going great, we're having fun, until one kid on the other team starts getting salty because he keeps losing to us. In between each game, this dude is talking trash, and of course, he directs most of it at me because I kept destroying him in the game. He starts saying stuff like, "Bro, do you even have a social life? You only play this game. Go outside, man. You're such a nerd. You know you don't get paid to play this, right? Why are you sweating so hard?" Now, it's funny because that comment totally backfired on him in the future, and if you're watching this, dude, I hope you remember. Anyway, he was mad. Like, really mad. But I was just ignoring him. I figured he was just salty, and I didn't care. I just wanted to keep playing and have a good time. And we start up the next game, and he's on the other team again. We win, and that's when things really start to escalate. He starts getting even angrier and starts yelling, "Yo, fangirl! Yo, fangirl!" Yeah, my gamer tag at the time was fangirl. He's like, "You're honestly pathetic, bro. What's wrong with you? Do you have a horrible home life or something? You come here and take out your struggles on this game?" I'm like, "Yo, you're really mad right now." He goes, "Yeah, because losers like you cheat." I just laugh and say, "Oh, so now I'm a cheater. First I'm a nerd who never stops playing, now I'm a cheater? Make up your mind, man." He then says, "Bro, I'm pulling your IP." Now, I've heard that threat on Xbox probably over 1,000 times, so I didn't take him seriously. I thought this guy was just talking big, like he didn't actually know how to pull IPs or hack or anything. So, I reply, "Sure you are, bro." And then he starts reading my info off to me, my IP address, my hometown, and I still didn't care. I was being defensive, like, "You're harmless, dude. You're like a little golden retriever puppy, cute and harmless. You can't do anything to me." And then, next thing I know, I'm offline. Now, like I said, I've heard that threat a lot, and I've been hit offline a lot too. When I was younger, I used to talk a lot of trash, and other people did too, so it happened pretty often. I figured he was using some free booter he found on Google and would probably hold me offline for 5 minutes or so. I wasn't too worried, I just thought, whatever, he's not a real hacker, he just knows how to hit people offline, I'll wait it out. 10 minutes go by, still not online. 20 minutes, still offline. A whole hour passes, and I'm still not online. At this point, my mom is getting annoyed. She's like, "Austin, why isn't the internet working? Can you fix it, please?" I'm trying, but I can't because we're getting DDoSed. The guy's hitting us offline. At that point, I decide to just go to sleep. I'm like, "Screw this, I'm done with today. I'll just play tomorrow." The next day comes, and I wake up to someone knocking on my door. I go over, open the door, and it's a pizza delivery guy. This dude from Xbox was so angry that I beat him in a quick scoping match that he got my IP address, my house phone number, and my address. I still have no clue how he got my address and phone number, but I know it's possible if you have someone's IP and are willing to put in the work. He was that mad that I beat him in a quick scoping match on MW2 that he got my address and sent a pizza to my house. The craziest part? The receipt had my phone number on it, so he must have somehow put that in when ordering online. And as soon as I told the pizza guy it was a prank and he left, I started getting restricted phone calls. I'm guessing it was the hacker calling me. I thought that was the end of it. The next day, I wake up and head to school, thinking everything's gonna be fine. I mean, he ordered a pizza and called my phone. That had to be the extent of it, right? He wouldn't be able to do anything worse than that. Nope. I get to school, and immediately after I walk in, security grabs me and takes me upstairs. I'm confused, like, why am I being brought to the office? What's going on? They tell me, "We don't know, we were just told to bring you up here as soon as you got to school." So now I'm freaking out. I'm thinking, did this dude call my school and make up some crazy story? I really hoped it wasn't anything too serious. I didn't know what I was walking into. This guy could have made a serious threat in my name and gotten the school all freaked out. They bring me to the main office and sit me down in the principal's office. My principal wasn't at school yet, so it was the vice principal. She's just staring at me and she goes, "Austin?" I'm like, "Yes?" She says, "We got a call this morning about you threatening another student." I'm like, "No, listen, I can explain everything, it's not what you think." She goes, "Well, what do I think?" I tell her, "I have no idea what that person said, but I promise you, there's a hacker who's been messing with me. They've been prank calling my house, sending pizzas to my house, and now they're targeting the school. I swear it's not me." She looks at me smirking like she thinks I'm making this up. I get it. What I'm saying probably sounded ridiculous to her. "There's a hacker after me isn't something school administrators hear every day." I tell her, "I'm serious. I can prove it to you. I'll call my parents right now and they'll tell you that a pizza got delivered last night and it wasn't by me." She sighs and says, "All right, let me just tell you what the threat was. Maybe it will ring a bell." I'm like, "Go ahead, but I didn't make any threats." She tells me, "We got a call this morning from an anonymous number. The caller said you were planning to come to school today and urinate in another student's locker." When she said that, I wanted to laugh, but I didn't. I knew that would be immature. I just said, "No, listen, that's fake. I would never threaten anyone with that, and I have no intention of doing anything like that today. I'm just here to get through the day and go home." She looks at me and says, "Really, Austin? You wouldn't?" I'm like, "Why are you even questioning this? Have I ever peed in someone's locker? I know I'm not the best student, but I'm not going to pee in anyone's locker." She smirks again and says, "Oh, not today, so maybe tomorrow." I'm like, "No, there are bathrooms here, and I'll use those, thank you." She goes, "Well, why would someone make a prank call about such a serious matter?" I'm like, "You really think this isn't a prank call? Someone calling the school saying I'm gonna pee?" Alright, so I've told story times like this before, but this one takes the cake as one of the most ridiculous encounters I've ever had with a former teacher. Hope you guys enjoy it. Leave a like if you do, and let's just jump right in. This story takes place back in 2018. I'd been out of high school for a while at this point. Every year, my city has a giant festival in the summertime. They shut down tons of streets, and it's basically a 5-day long event. It's not current music either, more like swing and jazz, the kind that appeals to an older crowd. I guess one of my old teachers really loved jazz because I saw him there on the very first day. I left my apartment to get food, and I had to walk through a bunch of the streets that were closed off for the festival. As I'm walking, I noticed my teacher in the crowd, swaying his hand back and forth to one of the songs. He had a giant cup of beer in his hand, and so did the woman next to him, probably his wife or girlfriend. They were just enjoying the smooth jazz and having a great time. Now, I wasn't super close with this teacher in high school, so my first instinct was not to run up and say hello. I figured he probably wouldn't recognize me, and honestly, I didn't feel like making small talk with a teacher. I just wanted to grab my food and get back home to watch Netflix, so that's exactly what I did. Fast forward to day 3 of the festival, and I'm in my apartment with 3 friends watching something on YouTube. It's getting pretty late, like 1 or 1:30 in the morning, but even though the music part of the festival is over, the bars are still open and people are hanging around, just partying in the streets. My friends and I decide to head out and see what's happening, basically just to see if anything interesting is going on. We're walking around, and from a distance I see that same teacher outside a bar. He's wearing a Hawaiian shirt, super short shorts, and sandals with no socks. The dude was living his best life. He looked very, very fucked up. He was doing this little dance in front of his friends, and his girlfriend was with him, dancing along. He had a giant glass of alcohol, and it was clear that he was absolutely wasted. As we get closer, I point him out to my friend who was in the same class with me. I say, "Look, that's our teacher from high school." My friend goes, "Oh, I remember him. He was so dope." My other friends had no idea who he was because they didn't go to the same school as us, but my friend was super hyped to see him. Even though my friend liked this teacher, we didn't want to say hi because he looked like he was having a blast, and we didn't want to interrupt his fun. So we keep walking, and as we're right next to him, he sees us and yells, "Hey, how are you guys?" We turn around and say, "Hey, how have you been?" He was like, "It's so good to see you guys. What have you been up to?" My friend tells him where he's working, and I say, "Not much, just doing YouTube stuff." He says, "I've heard about that. That's awesome." He was really fucked up. You could tell by the way he was talking and his facial expressions. Like I said, I wasn't close with this teacher, and I didn't do well in his class, so I was shocked he even remembered me. After chatting for a minute, he looks at me and says, "Austin, come here for a sec." He grabs my arm and pulls me across the street, away from everyone else. He looks me in the eyes and says, "I thought you'd appreciate this. I'm on 1.5 tabs of acid right now." I was like, "Wait, what?" He just nods and says, "Yeah, it's awesome." I'm like, "Are you serious?" He goes, "Yeah, man." I ask, "Why are you on acid?" And he says, "I don't know, man. The music and everything just felt right." I just say, okay, cool. Well, be safe. He goes, oh, I will. Don't worry. This isn't my first rodeo. At this point, I'm just confused. Why is he telling me this? Why did he think I was the person to tell? It was so funny and so random. This dude who once taught me in school is now telling me about his acid trip. Anyway, I just say, alright, have fun, be safe. And he says, don't you worry, I will. Have a great night, Austin. I hope everything's going well in your life. I tell him, thank you, man. You too. He says, anytime, have a good one. I turn around, head back to my friends, and we wave goodbye to everyone, my teacher, his friends, and his girlfriend. Then we start walking away. My friend asks, yo, why did he pull you away like that? What did he say? I tell him, yo, our teacher's on a tab and a half of acid right now. My friend's like, no fucking way. I say, yup, he randomly pulled me aside just to tell me that. My friend goes, yo, that is insane. I just nod like, yup. As we're walking away, we hear the teacher yell, guys, wait. We turn around and he goes, come back tomorrow, we'll party. I was like, okay, and we kept walking. At that point, I felt like I was living in a simulation. What the hell was going on? This wasn't some young, relatable teacher in his 20s or 30s. This was a guy in his mid-40s who was super serious in high school. You would never expect to see him at a festival on acid. You're probably wondering, well, what happened next? Did you go back the next day and party with him? Yeah, we did go back, but we didn't really party with him. We saw him and his friend group again, talked for about 30 minutes, and then ended up leaving to do something else because we didn't really fit in with that group of people. But it was still cool to see him again. Anyway, that's pretty much the end of the story. I thought it was a funny one, and I figured you guys would enjoy it. If you did, please leave a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to share your story times in the comments, and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all later. Peace. Alright y'all, I have a pretty insane story time for you today. This is something I never thought I'd witness firsthand. It's the kind of thing you hear about on the internet but never imagine it happening right in front of you. So, let's jump into it. This story takes place back in 2017. I was hanging out with this girl, let's just call her Jackie. Now, Jackie loved her vapes. Pretty much every time we hung out, we had to stop at a vape shop at some point during the day. She'd either be buying new Juul pods, getting something for her mod, or picking up a new juice. Jackie would constantly switch between her Juul and her other vape, which was a box mod, and she was always building a new box mod, constantly. Now personally, I didn't care what she did in her spare time. If she liked building box mods and vaping, so be it. I don't vape myself, but if vaping and building mods were her hobbies, I wasn't going to judge. Plus, it didn't seem that dangerous, at least compared to other things she could have been doing. So, I let her do her thing, and she let me do mine. It worked out fine. One day, about 3 months into us hanging out regularly, she told me about this spot she'd found. It was a big pond at a public park where you could feed ducks, hang out on a bench, and just enjoy the view. It sounded chill, so I said, why not? Let's go. She came over to my house, picked me up, and of course, she had her giant box mod with her. I could see it bulging out of her skinny jeans pocket. We drove over to the park, walked to the pond, and sat down on a bench. She pulled out her vape and started hitting it while we sat there talking. After a while, she put it back in her pocket. One thing about Jackie, she always wore layers of clothing. Lots of hoodies, pants, pajama bottoms under her jeans, sometimes even shorts under that. In New York, it gets pretty cold in the winter, so layering up was just part of life. On this particular day, she was wearing pajama pants and shorts under her jeans. You're probably wondering why I'm telling you all this. Well, trust me, it matters. So after she hits her vape, she puts it in her pocket and we just keep talking for like an hour. Right before we're about to get up, her pocket just fucking bursts into flames. Like no joke, it just explodes. I'm like, holy shit! And she screams, what the fuck? I grab my hoodie off the bench and start smacking her pocket with it to put the flames out. It burns a massive hole in her jeans. She quickly takes her pants off, and thank fuck she had pajama pants and shorts on underneath because that alone saved her from getting seriously burned. She still got a little burn, but it could have been so much worse if it weren't for those layers. After we put the fire out, we were both just in shock. She looked okay, but I wanted to be sure, so I asked, are you alright? You good? She said, yeah, I think I'm okay. That was so scary. I did not expect that. I was like, yeah, me neither. Then she said, I'm just gonna stick to my Juul from now on. That was terrifying. I said, fair enough. Are you sure you're good though? The hospital's right up the street. Do you need to go get your skin checked? She checked again, and it was red with a small burn, but nothing that couldn't be treated at home. So after that, we went back to her car and drove to a nearby pharmacy to get some burn cream. Then we went back to her house. When we walked in, her mom was making dinner, and she immediately noticed the giant burnt hole in Jackie's jeans. Her mom was like, Holy shit, what happened? I looked at Jackie and said, do you want to tell her? Jackie goes, yeah, Mom, my vape exploded. Her mom just shook her head and said, see, this is why I don't want you vaping. Those things are dangerous. I've heard about this on the news. They started arguing a bit. Jackie was like, Mom, it's really rare. This almost never happens. It's crazy that it happened to me. They kept going back and forth until Jackie agreed that she'd only use her jewel from now on and not her box mod, and if she ever got another box mod, she wouldn't put it in her pocket. They both agreed that was a good idea. In the end, Jackie was okay. The burn healed pretty quickly thanks to the cream and the layers of clothes that protected her. But yeah, moral of the story, if you're watching this and you vape, especially if you use a big mod, try to keep it out of your pocket. I know it's rare for them to explode, but still, I wouldn't want anyone getting hurt. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the story time. If you did, please leave a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to share your story times in the comments and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you later. Peace. I need to open doors like suicide, keeping me from Tilly's, I think I'm too close, teacher. Sad. Alright, y'all. I've got a pretty insane story for you today. This is one of those things that I never thought I'd actually witness firsthand, something that I'd only seen online. So, let's just jump right in. This story takes place about a year ago. It all started off as a regular day, nothing out of the ordinary. I was hanging out at my friend's house with two of my buddies. We were playing Skate 3, just having a good time and joking about whether we'd ever get a Skate 4. Thankfully, that dream came true a year later. But anyway, I'm getting off track. So, we're sitting there playing Skate 3 and one of my friends mentions that his buddy is throwing a party that night. Now, my other friend and I didn't know this guy, but he vouched for him, said he was chill, trustworthy, and it'd be fun. We figured, why not? We didn't have any plans. We hop in my friend's car and drive over to the guy's house. When we get there, we see about 18 cars in the driveway, so we knew it was going to be packed. The house wasn't even that big, so we could already tell it would be cramped inside. We walk in and it's packed, tons of people everywhere. We're immediately greeted by this dude who looked like he was the king of Hot Topic. Everything about his style screamed goth. I wasn't judging, it was just something I noticed and it becomes important later in the story. The guy comes up, introduces himself. He's the host, the friend of my friend. He was super nice, told us to make ourselves at home, pointed out where the drinks and food were, and said, my house is your house. Then he just disappeared into the crowd. I thought, wow, what a nice guy, super welcoming. But unfortunately, that didn't last. Fast forward about an hour into the party, and I'm getting really anxious. There were just too many people and it was getting overwhelming. So, I decide to go out into the backyard to chill by the fire pit for a bit and get some fresh air. I head out there and I notice the host is already outside with 4 of his friends. They were all dressed in almost identical outfits, same pants, shoes, even similar hairstyles. The only difference was their graphic tees and their hair was spiked and dyed different colors. I thought it was kind of cool how coordinated they were. I've never seen friends match so well. I head over to the fire pit and sit down, away from them. They were by the sliding glass door, smoking cigarettes, and I was just trying to calm down, taking deep breaths. But soon, I noticed them all approaching me. I wasn't worried at first. I figured they were just gonna sit down and talk, maybe try to make me feel welcome, which I was actually okay with since a smaller group is less stressful for me than being inside the packed house. But sadly, that wasn't the case. One of the guys walks over and says, "Yo, what's up?" I reply, "What's up, man?" He asks, "How do you like my boy's party?" I say, "It's pretty good, just needed some fresh air." He nods and goes, "Cool, cool. What's your name?" I tell him, "Austin." He goes, "I thought so." I was confused, like, "What do you mean? Do you know me?" And he says, "Yeah, man, I watched your videos a couple of years ago." I was like, "Oh shit, thank you, bro." And he goes, "Nah, man, don't thank me. They were trash." I start laughing because I think he's joking, but he keeps going, "Nah, I'm serious. It's bullshit that I work 40 hours a week, barely getting by, while you make dumbass gaming videos for 45 minutes and make bank. It's unfair." At this point, I realize he's genuinely pissed. He's mad about his life and he's taking it out on me. So, I say, "Look, man, YouTube started as a hobby for me, something I love doing. I didn't expect it to turn into my full-time thing, but it did, and I'm grateful for that. I'm sorry you feel that way, and I hope you get a raise or find something better, but it's not my fault, man." He keeps going, "Whatever, dude. I'm just saying, what you do is bullshit. Anyone could do it. I could do what you do and get just as many followers. You're not special." I was like, "Really? If it's that easy, why are you here complaining about your 9 to 5 instead of doing it yourself?" He didn't like that. He goes, "Fuck you," and throws his cup on the ground, spilling his drink everywhere, all over my shoes too. And suddenly, him and his friends surround me, getting in my face, yelling at me. I couldn't even make out what they were saying because everyone was shouting over each other. Before I knew it, my friends came outside, got between us, and pulled them away from me. They were yelling, "Yo, are you trying to jump our friend?" It was crazy because even with my friends, we were still outnumbered. There were 4 of us and 5 of them, but luckily, they backed down. They kept saying, "It was just a joke. We were just messing around." The main guy tried to play it off, saying, "Bro, I was just kidding." I told him, "Nah man, it wasn't a joke, but whatever. Have a good one." The host ended up kicking us all out, saying we weren't welcome anymore. We were totally fine with that. We didn't want to stay at a party hosted by a group of people who clearly didn't like me and were trying to mess with me. We went back to my friend's house, invited some more people over, and had our own little get-together. In the end, everyone was safe, and it turned out to be a pretty good night despite the drama. Moral of the story, stick with your friends at parties, especially if you don't know anyone there. And try not to wander off alone. You never know who might be holding a grudge for no reason. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the story. If you did, please leave a like. I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to share your own story times in the comments and subscribe if you're new. See y'all later. Peace. Yo, what's good everybody? It's Austin here, or Luna. Sorry for not posting the last few days. I'm not gonna lie, I've just been grinding the new Code E. Some real no-life stuff, just non-stop gaming for the past few days. Speaking of that, I'll be streaming it soon, either tonight or tomorrow, so if you haven't already, drop a follow on my Twitch, first link in the description, to get notified when I go live. Anyway, today's story time is a crazy one. It's about dealing with an online hater who took things way too far. I hope you enjoy it. Leave a like if you do, and let's jump right into it. This all starts when I was 17 years old. I was fully out of high school, grinding YouTube every single day, and just doing my thing. With YouTube, I was gaining subscribers and followers, which was great. But of course, with that came some haters. Most of the feedback I got was positive, but there was always that small group of people who really didn't like me and were super vocal about it, leaving nasty comments, tweeting at me, sending weird messages, you name it. One day, I had just finished working on a YouTube video and was getting ready for my buddy's graduation party later that night. I had about 30 minutes to kill before my friend was going to pick me up, so I decided to jump on my computer and read some comments on my recent video. While scrolling through, I came across this one comment that immediately stood out. It was from someone with a cringe username, something like Mr. Destroyer24, and it said, "This little expletive is from my hometown. If I ever see him, I'm gonna smack him." I read it and was like, okay, so this guy lives in my area and wants to fight me over YouTube videos? That's insane. Back then, I didn't always handle hate comments well. I should have just ignored it. But instead, I decided to feed the troll. So, I replied, "If you ever see me in public, you're not gonna do expletive, and we both know that." Within 2 minutes, this dude replies, "You might not want to keep running your mouth. I could find where you live in a heartbeat." I still thought he was full of it, so I pushed back again. I said, "You don't know where I live, and even if you did, you wouldn't do expletive." We went back and forth in the comments for about 10 minutes with me talking all sorts of smack. Looking back, yeah, I probably should have left it alone, but I didn't. I ended up blocking him, then went on with my day. My friend picked me up and we headed to the graduation party where I stayed for a good 4 or 5 hours, just having a great time. After the party, my friend dropped me back home. As I walked up to my house, I noticed something was wrong. The window to my bedroom was shattered. Half of it was spiderwebbed with cracks, and the other half had fallen out completely. I immediately freaked out. Someone had to have done this on purpose. The first thing I did was run to the garage to check if my mom's car was there, to see if she was home. Thankfully it wasn't, so I called her to make sure she was safe. She told me she was out at a friend's house and insisted I call the cops right away. So, I did. The cops arrived and we went into the house together to make sure it was safe. Thankfully, there was no one inside, but when we got to my bedroom, there was a huge rock sitting on my bed. The cop asked if anything was stolen, and I told him no. He then asked if I'd made anyone mad recently. At first, I couldn't think of anyone, but as we got closer to the rock, I noticed something written on it. In marker, it said, "I told you so, watch your mouth next time." At first, I didn't connect it to the YouTube comments. I thought maybe it was someone I knew in real life. The police made a report and they left. I felt confused and unsettled, not knowing who could be targeting me. Then, about 2 hours later, it finally hit me. That guy from my YouTube comments. I called the number one of the officers had given me for any additional information, and I told them about the comment and the guy's username. They said they'd look into it, but weeks went by and I didn't hear anything. Eventually, I gave up on it and just moved on. 3 months later, I got a call from one of my childhood friends. He said he was hanging out at a friend's house when the friend's little cousin, probably around 13 or 14 years old, started talking about how he didn't like me and how he had thrown a rock through my window a few months back. My friend didn't say anything about knowing me, but listened and got the kid's name and address. I gave that information to the police, and a few hours later, one of the officers came to my house to let me know they had talked to the kid. Apparently, the kid admitted to everything. He said he didn't like me because of our argument in the comments, so he threw a rock through my window. Since he was only 13, they weren't going to arrest him, but they suggested putting him in a program for troubled kids to try to set him straight. A few days later, the kid and his parents came to my house. His parents were super nice and apologetic, and the kid apologized too. They even offered to pay for the window. I told them I didn't want the kid to go to jail. I just wanted him to understand that what he did was wrong. So they agreed to put him in that program for a couple of weeks. I thought that was the end of it, but 2 weeks later, I got another call from the kid's parents. Someone had egged their house and left a note saying, "For Austin." I knew immediately it was my friend who had found out about the whole situation. I called him and he admitted it. He said he was just trying to get back at the kid for me. I was pissed. I told him that wasn't his place, especially since it was the parents who had to clean it up, not the kid. I ended up calling a couple of my other friends and we all went over to the kid's house to help clean up. The parents were super grateful and they even invited us in for coffee afterward. It was kind of surreal. I was helping clean the house of the kid who had thrown a rock through my window, all because my friend decided to get revenge. But in the end, it was actually a good experience, and everyone moved on. The kid's probably grown up and matured by now. As for my friend who egged the house, we stayed friends for a little while after that, but he eventually became more and more of a jerk. He even stole from me at one point, so we ended our friendship. Moral of the story, don't feed the trolls, don't throw rocks through windows, and definitely don't egg people's houses. I hope you enjoyed this story time. If you did, please leave a like, drop a comment with your story times, and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all later. Peace. Yo, what's good everybody? It's Austin here, or Luna. Sorry for not posting the last few days. I've just been grinding the new Code D, some real no-life stuff. I'll be streaming it soon, probably tonight or tomorrow, so if you haven't already, drop a follow on my Twitch, first link in the description, to get notified when I go live. Anyway, today's story time is wild. It's about an online hater who took things way too far. Hope you enjoy it. Leave a like if you do, and let's jump right in. This all starts when I was 17. I was out of high school, grinding YouTube every day. With all the new subscribers and followers came some haters. Most feedback was positive, but there was always a handful of people who just hated me, leaving nasty comments, tweeting at me, even sending weird messages. One day, I had just finished working on a video and was getting ready for my buddy's graduation party that night. I had about 30 minutes to kill before my friend picked me up, so I hopped on my computer to check the comments on my latest video. As I scrolled, one comment stood out. It was from someone with a cringy username like Mr. Destroyer 24, and it said, "This little expletive is from my hometown. If I ever see him, I'm gonna smack him." I read it and thought, really? This guy lives around here and wants to fight me over YouTube videos? Back then, I didn't always handle hate comments well. Instead of ignoring it, I fed the troll. I replied, "If you ever see me in public, you're not gonna do expletive, and we both know it." Within 2 minutes, this dude replied, "You might not want to keep running your mouth. I could find where you live in a heartbeat." I still thought he was bluffing, so I pushed back again. "You don't know where I live, and even if you did, you wouldn't do. Expletive." We went back and forth for about 10 minutes, me talking all sorts of smack. Looking back, I should have left it alone, but I didn't. I ended up blocking him, then went about my day. My friend picked me up and we went to the graduation party where I had a great time for a good 4 or 5 hours. After the party, my friend dropped me back home. As I walked up to my house, I noticed something was wrong. The window to my bedroom was shattered. Half of it was spider-webbed with cracks and the other half had fallen out. I freaked out. Someone had to have done this on purpose. The first thing I did was check if my mum's car was in the garage to see if she was home. Thankfully, it wasn't, so I called her to make sure she was safe. She was out at a friend's house and insisted I call the cops right away, so I did. The cops arrived and we went into the house together. Thankfully, no one was inside, but when we got to my bedroom, there was a huge rock on my bed. The cop asked if anything was stolen, and I said no. He then asked if I'd made anyone mad recently. At first, I couldn't think of anyone, but as we looked closer at the rock, I saw something written on it. "I told you so. Watch your mouth next time." At first, I didn't connect it to the YouTube comments. I thought maybe it was someone I knew in real life. The police made a report and left. I felt confused and unsettled. Then, about 2 hours later, it finally hit me. It was that guy from the comments. I called the number one of the officers had given me for any additional information, and I told them about the comment and the guy's username. They said they'd look into it, but weeks went by and I heard nothing. Eventually, I just moved on. 3 months later, I got a call from a childhood friend. He said he was hanging out at a friend's house when the friend's little cousin, probably around 13 or 14, started talking about how he didn't like me and how he had thrown a rock through my window. My friend didn't say anything about knowing me, but listened and got the kid's name and address. I gave that information to the police, and a few hours later, one of the officers came to my house. They talked to the kid, and apparently he admitted everything. He said he didn't like me because of our argument in the comments, so he threw a rock through my window. Since he was only 13, they didn't arrest him, but suggested putting him in a program for troubled kids. A few days later, the kid and his parents came to my house. His parents were super nice and apologetic, and the kid apologized too. They even offered to pay for the window. I told them I didn't want the kid to go to jail. I just wanted him to understand that what he did was wrong. They agreed to put him in the program for a couple of weeks. I thought that was the end of it, but 2 weeks later I got another call from the kid's parents. Someone had egged their house and left a note saying, "For Austin." I knew immediately it was my friend who had found out about the whole situation. I called him and he admitted it. He said he was just trying to get back at the kid for me. I was pissed. I told him it wasn't his place, especially since it was the parents who had to clean it up, not the kid. I ended up calling a couple of other friends and we all went over to the kid's house to help clean up. The parents were super grateful and they even invited us in for coffee afterward. It was kind of surreal. I was helping clean the house of the kid who had thrown a rock through my window, all because my friend decided to get revenge. But in the end, it was actually a good experience and everyone moved on. The kid's probably grown up and matured by now. As for my friend who egged the house, we stayed friends for a little while after that, but he eventually became more and more of a jerk. He even stole from me at one point, so we ended our friendship. Moral of the story, don't feed the trolls, don't throw rocks through windows, and definitely don't egg people's houses. I hope you enjoyed this story time. If you did, please leave a like, drop a comment with your story times, and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all later. Peace. What's up everyone? Austin here, or Luna, back with another story time. Yesterday, I told a story from way back when I was 12 years old, but today, I wanted to share something more recent, something that happened about 6 months ago. And let me tell you, this one is just ridiculous, hilarious, and honestly one of my favorite stories to share. I hope you enjoy it. If you do, drop a like on the video and let's dive into it. So, this all happened about 6 months ago when I was at my buddy Chris's new house. Chris and I have been friends for about 4 years and he had just bought his first house. It was a huge deal, so I was stoked to hang out there, check it out, and celebrate with him. I think it was either my first or second time at his place, but this time he had all the furniture moved in and it looked great. We were just chilling, watching some TV, and later we planned to have a cookout with a bunch of our friends. It was shaping up to be a great night. A few hours later, we were out back, grilling some burgers and hot dogs. Chris was at the grill, while a couple of us were just sitting around the table, enjoying the chill vibes. Some of our other friends were inside, just hanging out. Everything was going perfectly until we heard the sliding glass door open. One of our friends rushed out, looking super freaked out, and said, "Yo, Chris, you need to come to the front door right now. There's a naked guy at your front door asking for help." Chris and I just kinda laughed it off. The guy who came out to tell us was known for trolling, always pulling pranks, so we figured this was just another one of his jokes. Chris was like, "Yeah, sure, man." But the dude insisted, "No, seriously, there's a naked guy out front." At this point, we all got up. Even the guy at the grill stopped what he was doing and went to check it out. We all walked up to the front door, and of course, when we looked through the little window, there was no one there. We all looked at our friend like, "Really, dude?" He swore up and down that he wasn't lying, saying, "I swear, there was a naked dude banging on the door asking for help." One of the other friends who had been inside also backed him up, saying, "Yeah man, I saw him too." Now we were just confused, not sure if they were both in on the joke or if something really weird was going on. After a minute, we decided to just let it go. Maybe there was a naked guy, maybe there wasn't. Either way, we went back to the backyard to continue grilling. We were all hanging out, getting ready to eat dinner. About 10 minutes later, as we were about to sit down to eat, we heard this blood-curdling scream coming from the front yard. It was so loud and crazy that it almost sounded fake, like it was coming from a speaker. It was a man's scream, loud and terrified. We all jumped up and ran around the side of the house to see what was happening. As we turned the corner, we saw this dude, completely naked, running straight toward us, screaming his head off. My first thought was, oh, so the naked guy was real. My second thought was, he's running right at us and I do not want to get touched by a naked dude. We all quickly stepped out of his way and he ran past us, still screaming. As soon as he passed, the friend who originally told us about him shouted, I told you he was real and y'all didn't believe me." I was like, "Okay man, you're validated, but there's still a naked guy running through Chris's neighborhood and that's not exactly ideal." Right after that, We heard a car barreling down the street, horn blaring. Two college-looking guys were hanging out of the windows with air horns, screaming, "Where'd you go? Where are you running to?" It didn't take long to piece together what was happening. This guy was clearly pledging for a frat or something. You hear about these frat initiations all the time, making pledges do crazy stuff, and I figured this was one of those situations. Honestly, it was kind of messed up. I mean, forcing someone to run around naked through a neighborhood? Imagine if there had been kids around. It could have been so much worse. After the car sped by, the naked guy disappeared into someone else's backyard, and the car kept going up and down the street looking for him. We figured that was the end of it and went back to our cookout. We walked back to the backyard, ready to just forget about the whole thing. But when we turned the corner into the backyard, guess who was sitting in one of our lawn chairs? Yep, Mr. Naked himself. And to make it even worse, he was sitting in my chair. Chris shouted, "Dude, what the expletive are you doing?" The guy looked at us, all out of breath, and said, "Guys, I'm so sorry for crashing your party, but I really need help. They took my clothes and I need something to wear. Please, can you help me out?" Chris sighed and said, "Yeah man, I'll get you something to wear, but get the expletive up. Don't sit on my lawn chairs naked." The guy quickly got up, apologizing, and I was just like, "Dude, of all the chairs, you had to sit in mine?" He kept apologizing, and I asked, "Why are you even running through the neighborhood naked? What's going on?" He explained that he was pledging for a frat at his college. I immediately cut him off, like, I expletive knew it. He went on to say that part of the initiation was to knock on a neighbor's door naked and say the frat name. Then they were supposed to let him get dressed again, but instead, they drove off with his clothes. When he tried to ask us for help at the door earlier, they came back with a baseball bat, so he panicked and ran. He asked if he could stay with us until it was safe for him to leave, and I told him it wasn't my call, but Chris would probably be cool with it. About 10 minutes later, Chris came back with some clothes for him. The guy explained everything that had happened, how the frat ditched him, and even tried to intimidate him with a bat. Chris let him stay, saying, "Yeah man, hang out for a bit, have a burger, and then head out when it's safe." The guy was super grateful, thanking us over and over. So we all sat down and started eating. The guy fully clothed now, thankfully. Honestly, he was pretty chill. The more we talked, the more he seemed like a cool dude. It was turning out to be a decent time, despite everything. But then, about 15 minutes later, we heard that car again. The air horns, the yelling. It was those college kids driving slowly down the street looking for Mr. Naked. We all went quiet, hoping they'd just pass by. But then we heard the car stop, doors slamming and footsteps approaching. Chris and I looked at each other. I said, "Yo, you hear that?" He nodded. "Yeah, they're getting out." Mr. Naked started freaking out again, but I told him to stay calm. Sure enough, a few seconds later, the college kids came around the corner into the backyard. There were 4 of them, and they immediately spotted us. The leader of the group said, "Hey buddy, you ready to come back with us?" Chris stepped up and said, "Look, I don't care what you guys do for your frat, but this dude came into my yard asking for help, saying you tried to hit him with a bat. He's staying here, and you guys need to leave." The frat guy responded, "If we leave without him, he forfeits his clothes and his spot in the frat." I said, "We don't care about your frat, and clearly, he doesn't either. He's staying here." The leader got pissed and said, "Who the expletive are you?" I said, "I'm Austin, and I'm now friends with the guy you tried to hurt." The frat guy gave us one last warning. Either he comes with us, or we're dragging him out of here. Chris didn't say anything, he just turned around and walked into the house. I thought he was bailing on us. Meanwhile, the frat guys started pressing us, trying to grab Mr. Naked. Tensions were high, and it was about to turn into a full-on fight. Then, out of nowhere, the back door slid open, and Chris walked out with an expletive flamethrower. I'm not kidding, a real flamethrower. He started spraying flames into the air and shouted, "You better get the expletive off my property, or I'm adding you all to the menu tonight." The frat dudes ran so fast they nearly tripped over each other. I almost ran too. I had no idea Chris even owned a flamethrower. It looked like one of those insane ones you see in movies. After they ran off, I went up to Chris and asked, "Dude, where the hell did you get a flamethrower?" He laughed and said, "I bought it from my stepdad last week. Didn't think I'd need it so soon." I was just like, "Holy expletive, vol man." Mr. Naked, who we learned was actually named Sam, thanked Chris for saving him, and we all sat back down to finish our cookout. It was surreal, like we were just trying to have a normal night, and now we had a flamethrower wielding friend saving a naked dude from frat boys. But after that, everything calmed down. We had our burgers, hung out, and ended up actually becoming friends with Sam. He even started hanging out with us regularly after that. So, moral of the story. First, if a frat wants you to do something illegal or humiliating, just say no. Second, if you see a naked guy running through your neighborhood, maybe just call the cops instead of getting involved. And third, owning a flamethrower is probably not the best idea. But hey, it worked out for us this time. Anyway, that's the story. Definitely one of the craziest and funniest nights I've ever had. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, share your own story times in the comments, and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace. Yo, what's good everybody? It's Austin here, or Luna. So today's video is a story that honestly stands out from most of what I've shared here. It's about my former homie and his mom. Yeah, you heard that right, his mom. This is easily one of the craziest, most unexpected situations I've ever been involved in, and it led to the end of a friendship I thought would last forever. I hope you enjoy the story, and if you do, leave a like. It means a lot. Now, let's get into it. This story takes place back in 2016, one of my favorite years to be honest. The music was great, my YouTube channel was just starting to pop off, and a lot of my friends were graduating high school. Everything was going smoothly. Life was good. Back then, I had this friend, let's call him Tyler. Tyler was my best friend for years. I met him back in 2012, and we had been through a lot together. He wasn't one of those people who started hanging around just because of my YouTube success. He was always genuine. Tyler was a real one, and I honestly thought we'd be friends for life. So yeah, it's 2016, and things are great. I was hanging out with Tyler pretty much every day. We were always at each other's houses or driving around, just doing the usual teenage stuff. His parents were super cool too. His dad was always supportive, and his mom was really kind. I never had any issues with them. I thought they were the perfect family. But, man, was I wrong. One day, I woke up around 3 p.m. Yeah, my sleep schedule was pretty messed up back then. And after getting ready, I hit Tyler up to see if he wanted to hang out. He came by, picked me up, and we went to grab some food, then met up with a couple of our other friends. We spent the whole day just driving around, hitting a few stores, and chilling. Eventually, we ended up back at Tyler's house. We went down to his basement, played some video games, and just hung out. Before I knew it, it was super late, almost 1 a.m. Tyler was starting to doze off, and since he was my ride home, I asked if he could take me back before he crashed. He was too tired and asked if I could just sleep over. Now, I wasn't really into sleepovers anymore. I preferred my own bed, but I also didn't want to spend a ton on an Uber, so I agreed. Tyler set me up in the guest room with some blankets, and I started to drift off pretty quickly, which was unusual for me. Normally, it would take me ages to fall asleep at someone else's house, but that night I was out in like 10 minutes. Then, I started having this crazy dream where I was Spider-Man, swinging through New York City, being chased by a flying chocolate chip bagel that was shooting lasers at me. Yeah, I know, my dreams are weird. Suddenly, in the middle of the dream, I heard a ringtone, the default iPhone ringtone. It was one of those moments where a sound from real life seeps into your dream. I realized I was dreaming, and as soon as I did, I woke up. When I opened my eyes, I saw Tyler's mom standing right in front of me, silencing her phone and whispering angrily at it like, "Shut up, shut up." She looked over at me to see if I was awake, so I quickly closed my eyes and pretended to be asleep. I was confused. Why was she in the guest room in the middle of the night? I kept my eyes mostly closed, just barely peeking, and watched as she started going through the nightstand right next to the bed. Then, she picked up my wallet. I could barely see because it was dark, but she had her phone light on, and I saw her open my wallet and start going through it. My heart was pounding. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. She pulled out all the cash I had, which was about $150, then took my debit card, turned around, and walked out of the room. I was in shock. Did Tyler's mom really just rob me? I didn't want to believe it. I thought maybe she mistook my wallet for Tyler's or something. I just laid there trying to make sense of it. About 15 minutes later, I heard the door creak open again. I quickly closed my eyes and she walked back over to the nightstand, opened my wallet, put my debit card back, but kept the cash. Then, she quietly left the room. At this point, I knew what I saw. She had taken my money. I got up, walked downstairs, and found her in the kitchen having a snack. When she saw me, she looked startled. I said, "Hey," and she replied, "Hey, what are you doing up?" I told her, "I heard your phone and I saw you in the guest room going through my wallet. Did you take my cash?" She immediately went into denial mode saying, "Oh honey, you must have been dreaming. I never went into your room." For a second, I doubted myself. I mean, I had just been dreaming about being Spider-Man fighting a laser-shooting bagel, so who knows? But I went back upstairs, checked my wallet, and sure enough, the cash was gone. I went back down and confronted her again, but she kept denying it. Then I asked if I could see her phone. She hesitated, but eventually handed it over. I checked her missed calls, and there it was, a missed call from about 20 minutes ago, right when I woke up. I showed her the call and said, "This proves it. Your phone woke me up and I saw you take my money." She started stuttering, then just turned and walked upstairs without saying another word. A few minutes later, Tyler came down asking what was going on. I told him everything, but he immediately got defensive, saying, "My mom would never do that." He was getting more and more upset to the point where he shoved me into the kitchen table, yelling at me to stop accusing her. Tyler's mom came running down the stairs, telling us to stop and pulled us apart. I wasn't going to fight Tyler, he was my best friend, but he looked ready to swing. I decided it was best to just leave. I grabbed my stuff, walked out, and called an Uber. On the ride home, I was just trying to process everything that had happened. I couldn't believe it. A few days went by, and I didn't hear from Tyler or his mom. Then, out of nowhere, I got a call from her. She said, "Hey Austin, it's Tyler's mom. I'm calling to apologize. I did take your money. I'm in a tough spot, and I thought you wouldn't notice. I'm so sorry." I was stunned. Even with all the proof, I still didn't want to believe she would actually steal from me. She continued, "Please don't let this affect your friendship with Tyler. I'll tell him the truth." I told her I appreciated her honesty, but I wouldn't be coming over anymore. After that, I tried reaching out to Tyler, but I was blocked on everything. His phone, social media, all of it. I even made a new account to message him, but he left me on red. I guess his mom never told him the truth, or maybe he was just too embarrassed. I saw him at a party a couple of months later, and when I tried to talk to him, he just ignored me. It was awkward and honestly kind of heartbreaking. So, yeah, moral of the story, don't steal from people, and if you have a problem, talk it out instead of holding a grudge. In the end, I respect that Tyler's mom apologized, but it definitely changed how I view trust. Not everyone is as genuine as they seem, even the people you think you know best. I hope you guys enjoyed this story time. If you did, please leave a like and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you all later. Peace. Yo, what's good everybody? It's Austin here, or Luna. Today's story time is about a moment when I was definitely not on my best behavior. You know, most of the recent stories I've told revolve around my friends or people I went to school with doing some dumb stuff, but this one's on me. I hope you enjoy it. If you do, please leave a like on the video. Let's jump into it. This all takes place when I was 16. It was summer vacation and all my friends were off from school. As for me, I was barely attending at that point, kind of trying to do this YouTube thing full time. But since it was summer, my main focus was just hanging out with friends. My daily routine was simple. Wake up, shower, eat some breakfast, and then hit up the group chat to see who was down to hang out. So, I did just that. I texted the group chat and asked who was trying to meet up. Right away, my friend Patrick hit me back saying he was down. We planned to meet at a park near my house in 20 minutes, and that's what we did. 20 minutes later, I was at the park, meeting up with Patrick, and we were just walking around, bored, trying to find something to do since neither of us had a car or much cash. After about an hour or so, another friend of ours, Justin, hit us up. We all decided to meet at the mall. Now, Justin wasn't super involved in the chaos that was about to go down, but he's worth mentioning. The three of us were hanging out at the mall, and eventually, we ended up at this convenience store in the food court. They sold candy, snacks, drinks, just typical convenience store stuff. Patrick wanted to check it out, so we all went inside. Now, here's where things start to get a little dicey. At the time, I had a bit of money in my checking account, but my debit card had recently gotten stolen. That meant I couldn't use an ATM or buy anything at the store, and I didn't have any cash. But as we were walking through the aisles, I saw this little bag of sour candy that I really wanted. I picked it up and went over to Patrick. "Yo, can you cover this for me? My card got stolen, but I'll pay you back as soon as I can. I can even PayPal you right now if you want," I said. Patrick just looked at me like I was crazy. "Why don't you just use PayPal to buy it?" he asked. "Bro, this store doesn't take PayPal," I said, trying to explain that it was more for online purchases, but Patrick wasn't having it. "Yeah, well, that's your problem," he said. "I'm not buying it for you." So, I turned to Justin and asked him if he could help me out. He apologized and said he didn't have enough cash to cover it. He barely had enough for what he was buying. I believed him. He seemed sincere and even offered to share some of his chips with me later. But I didn't want chips. I wanted the sour candy. And that's when I made a decision that I'm not proud of. I slipped the bag of candy into my hoodie pocket. I figured I'd just walk out casually and the guy at the counter wouldn't even notice. It'd be easy. My plan was to grab a water cup from the food court, fill it with whatever, and enjoy my stolen candy. Not my finest moment, but I was 16 and dumb, so my friends went up to the counter to pay for their stuff, and I thought it was the perfect time to dip out. I started walking towards the door, trying to act as normal as possible, but right as I was about to step out, I heard the clerk shout, "Hey buddy, you gonna pay for that candy you stole?" I froze, then turned around to see the clerk staring right at me. He continued, "Yeah, I saw you on the camera." I looked at the screen. He had been looking at security footage the whole time. I was busted. I had two choices. I could do the walk of shame, go back, admit I couldn't pay for it, and hand it over, or I could run. And being the impulsive 16-year-old that I was, I chose to run. The food court doors were close and I thought I could make it, so I took off. As I bolted out of the store, I could hear my friends yelling my name, Austin, but I ignored them. I just wanted to get out of there. Little did I know I was about to make the biggest fool out of myself. As I was running, I slipped on a freshly mopped floor. I went flying backwards, arms flailing, and landed hard on my back. To break my fall, I put my hands out, and that's when it happened. My left pointer finger got messed up bad. I knew right away something was wrong, but I didn't want to stay there in pain, so I jumped back up and kept running, making it out of the food court doors and across the parking lot to a nearby bagel shop. I sat down, looked at my finger, and it was swelling up like a balloon. I knew I was in trouble. I texted my friends, telling them where I was, and they came over about 10 minutes later. They asked what happened, and I explained how I slipped. They told me that the clerk hadn't called security or anything. He just wanted me to put the candy back. I felt like an idiot. Then Patrick said something that made me even more annoyed. He was like, "Dude, if you wanted it that bad, I would have covered it." I stared at him in disbelief. "Bro, I asked you multiple times and you said no," I shot back. Even Justin chimed in, "Yeah, dude, you definitely weren't kidding when you said no." Patrick tried to backpedal, but we weren't buying it. The rest of that day, my finger was throbbing and eventually I had to call it quits. I went home and told my mom I thought I broke my finger. She took one look at it and was like, "Yeah, we're going to urgent care." We went, they took x-rays, and sure enough, I had a mild fracture. They put my finger in a splint and I felt like the biggest idiot for breaking my finger over a bag of candy. To make matters worse, about a week later, I had to go back to that same mall with my dad. I was praying we wouldn't end up near the food court, but of course, my dad wanted to stop in that convenience store. The same clerk was working. When we walked in, he looked at me and smirked but didn't say anything. He just said, "How you doing?" And I awkwardly replied, "Good." While my dad was shopping, I grabbed a pack of the same candy I had tried to steal. I went up to the counter and I told the clerk, "Charge me for 2. He nodded, rang up 2 bags, and I paid. I felt like it was the least I could do to make up for what happened. So yeah, that's the story of how I'm the worst thief ever and broke my finger trying to steal some candy. Instant karma, I guess. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, please leave a like on the video and feel free to share your own story times in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all later. Peace. I got this money and it's coming quick, and I got no soul from everybody taking pieces of me, leaving me broke. Oh no, me. Yo, what's good everybody? It's Austin here, or Luna. Today's story is definitely one of those wild ones, and judging by the title, you already know it's going to be interesting. Also, quick update, I've been getting a lot of DMs about that new TikTok girl I mentioned the other day. Unfortunately, no response yet. I shot my shot, but she hasn't posted anything new, and there's no word from her end. But hey, no worries, if anything changes, you'll be the first to know. Anyway, today's story takes place back in 2014. Yep, almost exactly 10 years ago, right before Halloween and just before my birthday. My birthday's on October 26th, so I was pretty excited for that. Life was good back then. I was just going through my usual routine, everything was chill, no complaints. So, it all starts like any other day back then. I got up super early, around 6 AM, because I had school. Took a shower, got dressed, and just tried to prepare myself mentally for another day of classes. I wasn't feeling it, but I knew I had to get through it. I grabbed my stuff, got on the bus, and went to school. I got to school, went straight to my locker, grabbed what I needed, and headed to my first class. The day was starting off pretty normal, and I was just going through the motions like everyone else. First period went by without a hitch, then came second period, and that's when things got interesting. So, I'm sitting in the back of the classroom, minding my own business, just doing what I needed to do to get through the class. Suddenly, this new kid walks in. I've never seen him before, and he looks way older than the rest of us. He had a full sleeve of tattoos, which was pretty crazy since we were all like 16 years old at the time. I remember thinking, who is this guy? My teacher introduced him as Anthony and told everyone to say hi. We all did the usual, "Hi Anthony," and he gave us a nod. The teacher told him he could take any open seat, and he ended up sitting right next to me in the back corner of the room. I gave him a nod, like, "What's up?" and he nodded back. Class started, and everything seemed pretty chill. About 15 or 20 minutes in, Anthony leaned over and said, "Yo, bro." I looked at him like, "Yeah, what's up?" And I kid you not, this dude asked me at 8 in the morning, "Do you know where I can buy some beer or a bottle?" I looked at him kinda confused and was like, no? He seemed disappointed and kept pressing, "Come on, you don't know anyone." I was like, "Dude, it's 8 AM, we're in school. No, I don't know anyone." He shrugged it off, but I remember thinking, who is this guy? After a few minutes, I figured I'd ask him something too, since he was talking to me. I said, Yo, quick question. How old are you? You've got a lot of tattoos. He told me he was 17, which made a bit more sense. I thought it was pretty badass to have a full sleeve at 17. We had a quick chat and then went back to our own business. After second period ended, we all poured into the hallway. I went to my locker, and while I was grabbing my stuff, I noticed Anthony again. Turns out his locker was right next to mine. He walked up and we had a bit of small talk. Then he asked, "Yo, what are you doing today?" I told him I didn't really have any plans, and he was like, "Bet, you want a link?" Back then, I was down to hang out with anyone. I didn't really care who it was, I was just always down to do something, especially if I had nothing better to do. We exchanged numbers and I made plans to meet up with him at his house after school. Fast forward to later in the day, I went home, changed, and then headed over to Anthony's place. He lived about 3 blocks away, which was convenient because I didn't have a car. I walked over there, and when I got there, I met his friends. I can't lie, when I walked in, I felt a little uneasy. His friends were definitely sketchy. One of them looked like he was 14 and the other looked like he could have been 20. It was just weird. I wanted to ask how old they were, but I didn't want to be rude, so I kept quiet. They both had that vibe, like they were up to no good, but I figured I'd hang around for a bit and see how things went. We all sat down, listened to music, and they were smoking a bit. I decided not to smoke, partly because I already felt out of place, and I didn't want to add anything else that might make me feel even more awkward. After about 30 minutes of hanging out, one of the guys suggested we go to the corner store to grab some snacks and drinks. Everyone was down because we had nothing better to do, so we headed out. We got to the corner store and we all picked up some snacks. I grabbed a bag of Doritos and a drink, just keeping it simple. After we paid, we started walking back to Anthony's house, and that's when things took a turn. Halfway back, the youngest looking kid stops, points at me, and says, "Empty your pockets." I laughed at first because I thought he was joking. But then Anthony spoke up and said, "He ain't kidding. Empty your pockets." I looked at him, still in disbelief, and then the older guy added, "He's not gonna ask again. Empty your fiction pockets." Now, I was scared. I didn't know these guys, and I didn't want to find out what would happen if I said no. But for some reason, a wave of anger came over me, and I said, "Nah, I'm good." That's when the younger guy reached into his pocket, pulled out a switchblade, and pointed it right at me. He said, "How about now?" I immediately backed down. I said, okay, and took out my wallet, phone, and everything I had. They took my phone and wallet, but at least they left me my keys. After that, they just walked away, heading back to Anthony's house like nothing happened. I stood there feeling scared, angry, and completely betrayed. I had just met these guys, and they straight up robbed me. I felt stupid for trusting them and agreeing to hang out. I walked back home in complete shock. When I got there, I tried to lie to my mom about what had happened. I told her I dropped my phone and it broke, so I threw it away. She immediately knew I was lying and pressed me until I finally admitted the truth. I told her about Anthony and his friends and how they pulled a knife on me and took my stuff. My mom was furious and wanted to call the cops, but I begged her not to. I was scared they'd come after me if I did. Instead of calling the police, my mom called the school. She got me moved out of the class I had with Anthony, and she also made sure I didn't have the same lunch period as him anymore. It made her feel a lot better, and honestly, it made me feel a bit safer too. I didn't want to see him or his friends ever again. Now, here's the part where karma comes into play. 2 days later, I was on Facebook, scrolling through my feed when I saw a post from the local convenience store, the same one we went to before they robbed me. The post was a security camera screenshot showing Anthony and his 2 friends ripping stuff off the shelves and running out of the store. The store was asking for information about who they were. Someone I knew from school shared the post and even tagged Anthony in it. A few days after that, I saw another post saying that they had been caught and arrested. Apparently, Anthony had to spend a few weeks in juvenile detention, and the older guy, who was actually an adult, went to jail. The younger kid, the one with the knife, was also sent to juvie. Honestly, seeing that post was all the revenge I needed. It felt like instant karma. I felt way less shitty about what happened to me, knowing that they got what was coming to them. It just goes to show, you can't go around treating people like that and expect no consequences. So yeah, that's the story. Moral of the story, don't rob people. Don't act like someone's friend just to take advantage of them. And most importantly, karma always catches up to you eventually. I learned a lot from that experience. I definitely became a lot more cautious about who I trusted after that. Hope you guys enjoyed this story time. If you did, please leave a like, drop your own story times in the comments, and subscribe if you're new. I'll catch you all later. Peace. Yo, what's up everybody? It's Austin here, or Luna. Today, I've got a pretty interesting story time for y'all, and yeah, it involves another TikTok girl, which I never thought I'd have to say those words in that order in my life, but here I am. So, let's jump into it. So, The past 2 weeks have been a little bit inconsistent for me. I haven't been uploading as much, I've just been busy with some music stuff, family stuff, and just life in general. Honestly, it's kind of good that I took that little break because some funny and crazy story times came out of it, and today I'm going to tell you the wildest one. I hope you enjoy it. Leave a like if you do, and let's get into it. This story all starts last weekend, Saturday to be exact. I wasn't planning on doing anything that day. The whole week had been hectic, so I was just going to chill and do nothing. I was relaxing on the couch, catching up on some shows, when my phone rang. I looked at the caller ID and saw it was a number I didn't recognize. Now, typically, I'm not answering calls from numbers I don't know, so I let it go to voicemail and kept watching TV. A few minutes later, I see a voicemail notification pop up, and my phone starts transcribing the voicemail. It said, "Yo dude, it's Brandon. Not sure if this is still your number, but if it is, call me back." As soon as I read that, I felt like a total jerk. I knew who it was, my friend Brandon. I guess he got a new number because it wasn't saved in my contacts. So of course, I called him back right away. He picks up and goes, "Austin, what's up, man?" I apologized immediately and explained that I didn't recognize the number. He just laughed it off, said he forgot to tell me he had a new number, and then invited me to his birthday party. It turns out his birthday was the next day, but he was celebrating that night with a bunch of people. He even mentioned that a lot of our old friends would be there, which had me feeling nostalgic, so I decided I was down to go. There was definitely a part of me, maybe about 20%, that was saying, "Nah, just stay home, chill, be lazy." But the other 80% was like, "Austin, you've been cooped up, you need to get out and socialize." So I listened to the 80%. I told Brandon I'd be there, and he was stoked. After I hung up, I started getting ready. The party was at 80, so I had a bit of time. I took a shower, got dressed, all that good stuff. My friend came by to pick me up and we headed over to Brandon's house together. Just to give a bit of background, I've known Brandon since I was about 10 years old. We met at this teen night at a gym I used to go to as a kid, and we've been tight ever since. He even ended up going to my high school, so we've got a lot of mutual friends. It had probably been about 8 months since I last saw him, so I was pretty excited. We get to Brandon's house, walk in, and he's right there by the door to greet us. He gives us both big hugs and tells us to make ourselves at home. The party was already in full swing. People were hanging out, music was playing, drinks were on the counter. Everything seemed great. And honestly, the party was amazing from start to finish. I had a blast. It wasn't one of those parties where things take a turn for the worse. Everything was just good vibes, a lot of fun, and just a great time overall. After about 4 hours though, I decided to head out. I said my goodbyes to Brandon, who told me we should hang out again soon, and I left with my friend. On the way back, my friend looked over and asked if I was hungry. I'm always down for food, especially after a party, so we decided to stop by this 24-hour diner that's pretty popular around here. It was packed, lots of people were there, probably coming from bars or other parties, but we got lucky and managed to get a table. Our table was right in front of this booth that had 4 very drunk women in it. Like, they were absolutely hammered, the kind of drunk where you probably get kicked out of whatever bar you were at. But they seemed to be having a good time, so I just ignored them and focused on ordering my food. Well, about 15 minutes in, things took a turn. I was scrolling on my phone while waiting for the food when suddenly I felt something wet hit the back of my neck. I grabbed it and it was a soggy straw wrapper covered in what looked like Coke or Pepsi. I turned around and the girls in the booth were just giggling their heads off. I held the wrapper up and asked, "Hey, does this belong to one of you? You might have dropped it on my neck." They all laughed even harder and one of them said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I meant to throw it on your table to get your attention, not hit you." I just said, "All good," and tried to go back to my own thing. But then she kept talking, asking, "Are you guys single?" I was totally caught off guard, not expecting that at all. These women were definitely older, late 30s, maybe early 40s, and here we are in our 20s. I told her, "Nah, I'm not single," but my friend said he was. Then she said, "Well, we have a wedding to go to in 2 days and we need dates. We don't want to show up without dates. Would you guys be down to go with us?" My friend and I kind of exchanged this look like, "Yeah, we're definitely not doing that." So I replied, "I appreciate the offer, but I can't. I've got a girlfriend, and besides, weddings aren't really my thing." My friend chimed in, "Yeah, I'm single, but I'm not really looking to go to a wedding either. Thanks for asking though." We tried to be polite, but they got visibly annoyed, rolling their eyes and muttering something under their breath. We turned back around, hoping that would be the end of it. A few minutes later, our food came and we started eating. But, of course, it wasn't over. While I was eating, I suddenly felt something hit the back of my neck again. I reached up and grabbed it, and it was a napkin, a piece of napkin with ketchup on it. I turned around, kind of fed up, and said, "Hey, can you please stop throwing stuff at us?" The girl just looked at me and said, "I meant to hit you that time." I told her, cool, just don't do it again, and went back to eating. But sure enough, a couple of minutes later, I got hit again, this time on the head. I looked down and it was a French fry. At this point, I was beyond annoyed. My friend must have been feeling the same way because he stood up, walked over to the hostess, and snitched on them. I wasn't expecting that. I figured we'd just ignore them until they left, but my friend had had enough. The hostess came over to their table and told them they either had to move or leave. The girls stood up and made a huge scene, cursing, yelling, refusing to pay their bill, just being overall obnoxious. Eventually, they stormed out of the diner, flipping us off and swearing at everyone, including the hostess. After they left, I looked over at the hostess and she looked super stressed. She was cleaning up their table and I felt bad, so I told her, hey, I'll cover their bill. They shouldn't have walked out without paying. She tried to refuse, but I insisted, saying I didn't want her getting in trouble because of those girls. She went to talk to the manager, and a few minutes later, the manager came over to our table. He said, listen, you're not responsible for their bill. We'll take care of it. Also, your meal is on us tonight. You shouldn't have had to deal with that. I thanked him, and even though our meal was free, I still left a nice tip for our server and the hostess. After we finished eating, we were walking out to the car, and we saw those same girls in the parking lot, gathered around their car. The main girl had her phone propped up on the trunk, and she was recording a TikTok. The others were hyping her up while she talked to the camera. My friend and I didn't want to walk into their frame, so we waited a bit. When they finished, we started walking to our car, but one of them noticed us. Well, look who it is, she said. They all turned to look at us, and the main girl said, you guys come out for more? I just replied, we're just going to our car. We're not here to argue. She wasn't having it though. She started yelling at us, saying we got them kicked out of their favorite restaurant. Then she opened her purse, and I got a bad feeling. She pulled out a can of pepper spray and started walking toward us. My friend and I ran to the car, jumped in, and locked the doors. She came up to the passenger side, where I was sitting, and started spraying the window. Luckily, the window was up, but some of it seeped in, making my eyes water and burn. My friend wasted no time. He put the car in reverse, backed out, and sped off. We were both just done with the whole situation. But it didn't end there. As we drove away, I looked back and saw them jumping around, flipping us off. I was so mad that I decided to call the diner. The manager answered, and I said, hey, it's Austin, the guy from earlier. Just wanted to let you know those girls are still in the parking lot and they just pepper sprayed my friend's car. Also, they're all drunk and trying to drive. He was not happy and thanked me for letting him know. After that, my friend dropped me off at home and the rest of the night was uneventful. I watched some Netflix and fell asleep. The next morning, I woke up to a text from my friend. It was a link to a TikTok profile and he wrote, bro, I just got this girl's TikTok on my For You page. She looked familiar and then I realized who it was. I clicked the link and sure enough, it was the girl from the diner. She had around 20,000 followers, so she was semi-popular on TikTok. Unfortunately, she hadn't posted the TikTok she filmed in the parking lot, which I was kind of curious to see. My friend and I were both hoping she'd post it eventually. We wanted to see if it was about us and if she was salty about the whole situation. Anyway, after talking about it for a while, my friend asked if I wanted to grab breakfast. We decided to go back to the same diner. We were gluttons for punishment, I guess. When we got there, it was a different staff, the morning shift, so the manager from the night before wasn't there. But as we were eating, I overheard two waitresses talking about the police being there the previous night. I couldn't help myself. I asked, sorry to interrupt, but were you guys talking about those girls from last night? The ones who were causing a scene? One of the waitresses nodded and said, oh my god, you were the guys they were bothering. She went on to explain that the manager had called the police after I left and the cops came to deal with the girls. Apparently, the main girl, the one with the red hair, got a major attitude with the cops and tried to get into her car to drive. They ended up arresting her and the others had to Uber home. Hearing that made my day. It was just pure karma. She got exactly what she deserved for being reckless, drunk, and obnoxious. Hopefully, she learned a few valuable lessons that night, like not drinking and driving, not causing scenes in public, and definitely not using pepper spray as a weapon on innocent people. So yeah, that's the story of the TikTok girl who got arrested after causing chaos at a diner. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, drop a like on the video and subscribe if you're new. And who knows, maybe she'll eventually post that TikTok she filmed and we'll get a part 2 to this story. Peace out, everyone. Yo, what's good everybody? It's Austin here, or Luna. So, it's been a while since I've shared a story about one of my exes, and let me tell you, I've had my fair share of interesting relationships. Some of my exes have been alright, but others, absolutely crazy. Today, we're diving into one of those really bad ones. I hope you enjoy the story, and if you do, leave a like. Let's jump into it. Today's story time all takes place when I was 21 years old. I was dating this girl for about 2 months at this point, and I'll be honest, she was really good looking. Like the kind of person that's so attractive you end up ignoring a lot of red flags because, well, you're just caught up in how they look. And let me tell you, that is never a good way to navigate a relationship. Trust me. That's moral number one of today. Never ignore your gut feeling just because someone is attractive. And so, let me give you a bit of context. There were definitely some red flags early on in those 2 months that made me think, okay, this might not work out in the long run. But I just kind of ignored them because, she was hot. For example, just 2 weeks into dating, we went to the movies. I was checking my phone before the movie started, just replying to some texts, and she saw a girl's name on my screen. She was like, "Who's that?" I looked at her, like, what? She pointed at my phone. "Who's Lisa?" I told her, "Oh, that's my friend's grandma." She looked at me like I was lying. She actually thought I was smashing my friend's grandma. I had to explain that Lisa was practically family and I was just texting her happy birthday. That was red flag number one. She had some serious trust issues. Then, about a month in, we were at dinner, and when the check came, I paid, like usual. She looked at me and said that throughout the entirety of our relationship, I was going to have to pay for every single meal we ever ate together. She straight up told me she would never pay for anything, not even as a nice gesture. That was red flag number two. I should have taken the hint there, but again, I was ignoring the signs. And then came the biggest red flag of all, 2 months into our relationship. This is where she went from a little insecure to full on crazy. So, let me set the scene for you. I had plans that day to get lunch with her and then go shopping afterward. We both needed some new clothes. I wanted some new hoodies and she needed some jeans. So, we made a whole afternoon of it. I was excited because, despite everything, I still liked spending time with her. So, I got ready, she picked me up, and we went to the mall. We ate lunch at this little diner attached to the mall, and everything was going smoothly. After lunch, we started shopping. At one point, she was trying on jeans in a store, and I was just sitting on a bench near the fitting rooms, waiting. Suddenly, I hear, "Austin, is that you?" I look over, and I see this girl. At first, I didn't recognize her, but then she says, "I'm Sarah. Our moms used to be best friends. I used to come over all the time." And it clicked. Sarah was an old family friend. I was like, "Oh wow, it's been forever. How have you been?" We started catching up. It was all very innocent. While we're talking, my girlfriend comes out of the fitting room and gives us both this death stare. I introduce them. "Hey, this is Sarah. She's an old family friend. We basically grew up together." My girlfriend gives her this fake smile and then she's like, "Oh, cool. Happy for you guys," in the most passive-aggressive tone ever. Sarah looked a bit uncomfortable, and after some awkward small talk, she walked away. My girlfriend then called me into the fitting room with her and started interrogating me, asking who Sarah was and if I thought she was hot. I told her, "No, she's like family." But my girlfriend kept pushing, saying stuff like, "So you think she's ugly then?" It was just exhausting. She kept making a scene, getting louder, and honestly embarrassing me. So I just walked out. I left the store and sat on a bench outside, waiting for her to finish. About 20 minutes later, she came out and we left the mall. On the way to her car, she kept pushing me, saying I was being shady for leaving the store. I told her I just didn't want to argue, but she wouldn't let it go. We get in her car and she keeps going, asking if I thought Sarah was attractive. I just told her, "No, she's not my type." It was true. Sarah was basically like a cousin to me, but my girlfriend wouldn't drop it. She kept pushing until we got to my house. When we got there, I tried to just end the conversation and move on, but she wanted to come inside. I said fine, and we went into my room. We put on Netflix, and things finally seemed to calm down. A little while later, she apologized. She said she was just insecure and that she was sorry for making a scene. I appreciated the apology, and we made up. We spent the next couple of hours just hanging out, watching TV, and eventually, I fell asleep. When I woke up, she was gone. She had left me a text saying, "Hey, you fell asleep, so I went home. Love you, text me when you wake up." I thought everything was cool at that point. Fast forward to the next day. I was getting ready for the day, and while I was working on a YouTube video, I heard a beep coming from my pants pocket. I reached in and pulled out this weird little black plastic device. It looked like a small pager with a blinking green light, and I had never seen it before in my life. I had no idea how it got in my pocket. I was super confused, but I figured maybe it was some random tech I bought and forgot about. I put it in my desk drawer and finished my video. Later that day, my friend Jason came over. We were planning to hang out and then go see a movie with another friend. I remembered the weird device and showed it to him. He was just as confused as I was. He Googled it and showed me a picture of a GPS tracking device, and I realized it looked pretty similar, but I still wasn't sure. We joked about it, and then I put it back in my drawer, not thinking too much more about it. The next day, my girlfriend came over again. We were hanging out in my room and I thought about showing her the weird device just for fun. I pulled it out and when I showed her, her face changed. She looked kind of freaked out. I didn't think much of it at first. I handed it to her and suddenly her phone got a notification. I saw it pop up. It said, "Device in range, finish setting up now." She immediately swiped it away, trying to play it off, but I saw it. I asked her what that was, and she tried to lie, saying it was just an Instagram DM. I wasn't buying it. I told her to stop lying, and eventually she opened her phone and showed me. It was an app to connect to the GPS tracker, the one I had found in my pocket. My girlfriend had put a tracker on me. I was in shock. I asked her why she would do that, and she said she did it because she didn't trust me, especially after seeing me talk to Sarah at the mall. She thought I was hiding something. I told her that tracking me was a huge violation of privacy, and I couldn't believe she did it. She tried to apologize, but I told her I didn't think we could be in a relationship anymore. She got mad, trying to blame me for talking to other girls, but I was done. I told her to leave, and she took the tracker and left my house. The next day she called me, trying to apologize again, saying she could work on trusting me. But I told her it was over. She started yelling at me, saying I was in the wrong too, so I just hung up. I didn't want to deal with it anymore. 2 weeks later, I was at home when I heard a knock at my door. I looked out the window, and there she was, sitting on my porch. I went downstairs and opened the door. She said she wanted closure, but I told her we were really done. She tried to convince me to give her another chance, but I told her no. She gave me a dirty look, walked off, and that was that. A few hours later, I opened up Snapchat and I still had her added. She had posted a story and it was her on a date with another guy. Apparently she already had someone lined up. I wasn't heartbroken, but it annoyed me that she was being such a hypocrite. So, I decided to be a little petty. I found the guy's Instagram and sent him a DM, letting him know that she had put a GPS tracker on me. He called me later that day and I told him the whole story. He thanked me and ended things with her. She found out I told him and sent me an angry text, but that was the last time we spoke. I never saw her again, and honestly, I'm glad. That was one of the craziest relationships I've ever been in. Moral of the story, if you don't trust someone, just break up with them. Don't put a GPS tracker in their pants. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this story. If you did, please leave a like and feel free to share your own story times in the comments below. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you later. Peace.